And it is 5 o'clock Pacific time here in BC, so I'm going to give you guys a official welcome. We're going to get started. Welcome to Beaver Politics. Today you have me for News Hour, and I'm just going to talk quickly about kind of what's been going on, what's on the horizon, and then I'm going to open up the panel and we're going to have some discussions about the current news. Oh, nice, you're from Mission. That's awesome. I went to school in Abbotsford at UFB, so I had campuses in Mission and Abbotsford when I was in university, way back in the day. 1 p.m. on Wednesday, nice. Yeah, okay, so you're only 4 hours ahead. Okay, well, I'm going to start chatting and then people will join in. We're just going to talk about all of the different crazy things that are going on. I'm not going to overwhelm you guys with too much. I think what's on everybody's mind, especially as we all woke up this morning to, the orange Cheeto Mussolini down south threatening with more tariffs, and then writing on his Truth Social all about Canada becoming the 51st state again, and calling us mean and horrible for thinking about shutting down electricity for certain states, saying how can we not care about innocent people. Trump said that we don't care about innocent people, and yet today, the very same day, he also him and Doge just cut $1 billion worth of funding for food banks and low-income families. But we're the ones in Canada that don't care about innocent people. Right. Yeah, obviously, as you guys know, stock markets are a little bit in free fall right now. Doug Ford has said that he is pausing the tariffs so that he can go down to Washington and talk with people in the Trump administration to try to make a deal. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. Why don't you guys let me know in the chat? How do you feel about that? Because there's a lot of mixed emotions in Canada about it. Some people are very angry with Doug Ford. Other people are saying that it's a good thing and we have to buy ourselves time and work on negotiations. There's a lot of mixed emotions. I'm not taking any sides on this because I don't know who advised him. I don't know if it was his own idea. I just know that this guy has flip-flopped a lot, right? I mean, he was tough on Trump, and then he wasn't, and then he was tough on Trump again, and now he's pausing the tariffs, and we don't really know what's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen. I looked at it from both perspectives today. I talked to some people that are very upset about it, and I even... I know this sounds ridiculous, but I actually talked to my AI this morning, and I was like, I don't know if this is good or bad. Can you let me know? Like, what do you think? And ChatGPT told me that it's a bad thing. But of course, I take everything with a grain of salt because I'm talking to an AI bot. But the AI bot was like, it's a bad thing. It's going to make Canada look weak. It's going to make it so that the United States can take more advantage of you because you're going to seem weak. But then I talked to some financial experts, and they actually said that it was a good thing, and that it's to buy us time and to give us a break as Canadians, and we have to try to work with as much diplomacy as humanly possible. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It could be a good thing, maybe, to buy us some time. But then again, do we really trust Doug Ford? There's a lot of things that he said and a lot of things he hasn't done. He likes to make a lot of empty promises. So that's my fear, right? Yeah, right? Like it could just be a way for him to negotiate. The only thing I care about is that Starlink deal continues to be ripped up. I do not want him to go back on that, because if he goes back on that, then we'll know what side he's on. I'm not bringing anybody up right now. So I will bring people up later. I'm going to open up the panel later, but for the very beginning here, I'm just going to chat with the chat. Yeah, a lot of people don't trust him. That's the thing. So, oh, cool. That's so nice. I'm going to just mute you over here because that was inappropriate. Okay. Acted tough until he got the votes that he wanted. Yeah, and that's honestly what I thought about too. Like when I woke up and I saw that news this morning, the first thing I thought about was like, oh, okay, so you were just tough so that people would want to vote for you, and then as soon as you got in, now you're okay to pause them. But again, I'm not the expert here. I am not the expert here. We've never dealt with this before. If he was a trustworthy person, then I would probably be behind him and say that's probably a good idea. Let's try to work diplomatically. But because he's not a trustworthy person, and I know his ties to Republicans, I'm a little sketched out. So we'll see. I don't think Canada folded because at the end of the day, like the tariffs hurt the country that you're in, right? So no matter what, if we place tariffs, it's still hurting our economy. If they place tariffs, it's only hurting their economy. It's no bueno. Helen, I don't actually know if Doug Ford is considered to be part of the IDU because he's a premier. He's not part of the federal party, but I mean, he's still conservative, so. That is okay. Internet does that sometimes. Yeah, right? Like there's a lot of experts and, like our energy minister said that all tariffs should be scrapped, not those on specific sectors. So I'll pull it up right here to see what he said. But our energy minister had some things to say. Oh, and of course, Globe and Mail is going to make me pay to read this article, so never mind. But yeah, there's a lot of experts that are saying we should just not place any tariffs because it's only going to hurt us, and we should just go only for boycotting, right? So that's what some experts are saying. Other experts are saying you got to call their bluff, place all the tariffs, act tough. So at the end of the day, just like the petty queen said, like a tariff war, nobody wins, just the rich. At the end of the day, people suffer on both sides. And I think that's exactly what these guys want. At the end of the day, my personal opinion on this, and again, personal opinion, not necessarily exactly what's going to happen, but the trend that I'm seeing is, these rich guys have done these like pump and dump schemes their whole life. And this seems to be one that is massive because with the stock markets doing this, every time the stock market crashes, the billionaires can buy everything up. They can buy up all the stocks. They can buy up their competition. So they can just start owning more and more and more of everything, create giant monopolies. There's a lot of people in the Trump administration and the Conservative Party here in Canada that are really obsessed with crypto and wanting to move our currency over to crypto. So I'm thinking that this is actually the beginning of the push to weaken the dollar so that they can come in as the saviors and say, oh, look, our dollar is doing so bad. Now let's switch over to crypto. I don't want to go to crypto. That would be absolutely terrible. But I'm thinking that's what they're going to do. They're going to use these stock market crashes to buy everything up when it's low. Then they're going to say that the dollar's hurting and that we need to move on to crypto. Then, I don't know if you guys remember, but about 2-3 weeks ago, there was a bunch of articles that came out to say that, Elon Musk wants to go investigate Fort Knox and see if the gold is still there and give everybody a virtual tour. And so I think they're going to do that. And they're going to go to Fort Knox. They're going to lie and say that the gold's not there anymore and that there's a big corruption scandal. The dollar is going to absolutely tank. And then they're going to be like, oh, we have to now. We have to go over to crypto because that's the only way to save the economy. And if that happens, then they can start using things like incentives to get people to buy into this idea. Oh, here's an incentive. If you use crypto to buy this car, you'll get 10% off. Or, oh, you want to buy a new home, we'll give you $10,000 off if you're using crypto. And then it'll be like going up to Canada and saying, oh, no more tariffs, no more nothing if you just switch over to crypto. So I think it's part of a giant global financial takeover. And I'm hoping that we never get there, but it just fits a little bit too well. It just fits a little bit too well. So that's my fear. And again, I'm not the only person that's saying this, right? There's a lot of people that are at least on board with the fact that they think that this is all being done purposefully to weaken our economy and crash the market so that all the billionaires can get rich. Because what happens during a recession? What happens during a depression? The richest people get richer, and the lower and middle class end up getting wiped out. So it's brutal. All right, I'm going to read through some of these comments now because I see so many of these. I think so too. That's why they're crashing the market on purpose. Yes, yeah. I'm not the only one that thinks it. I have a feeling that Doug Ford and Trump's little tariff battle was all worked out between them. Could be. Could be. I'm at the point where I just don't know. And I will very much admit that I don't know what the plan is with Doug Ford and him going down to Washington. I have no idea. Is he actually trying to negotiate and maybe buy us some time and do the diplomatic thing so that Canada can become more prepared? Or does he have some sort of backroom deal that he's going to be doing with the guys in Washington? No idea. I'm not taking any sides yet until I see more information, because right now I do not have enough information to actually make an educated guess as to what's going on. And yes, crypto is very insecure, and that's exactly why they would want to move it over to crypto so that they can control it. And this is part of their plan. Like, if you guys read through, what the tech bros that have backed the Trump administration have been talking about for years, is how they want to move the global currency to crypto. So it's not a new idea. And they are all buying now. So again, it just fits. It fits the story a little bit too well, right? Peter Thiel, the guy that backs JD Vance, Elon Musk, all these guys have been talking about a plan to move everybody onto crypto for a long, long time. It's not something new. And there's nobody to hold them accountable. That's the craziest part. There is nobody to hold them accountable. Like, they own they own all the government. They're shutting down agencies. There was, I'm going to see if I can find the article, but I don't want to call him a criminal, but some guy that had a civil court case. He's a big crypto Mongol. He was able to basically buy his way out of that by purchasing Trump coin. And all of a sudden he bought a bunch of Trump coin and poof, his civil court case went away. Let's see if I can find it so I can figure out what his name is. There we go. First thing that popped up. So a businessman who pumped $75 million into the Trump family-backed crypto token finds himself in a fortunate position this week as federal security regulators are hitting pause on their civil fraud case against him. On Wednesday, lawyers for the Securities and Exchange Commission and Justin Sun, a 34-year-old Chinese crypto entrepreneur, asked a federal judge to put the agency's case on hold, citing the interests of both sides and public interest. The pause is a 180 for the SEC, America's top financial regulator, which 2 years ago charged Sun and his companies, Tron, BitTorrent, and Rainberry, so it's the guy that did BitTorrent, okay, with selling unregistered securities and fraudulently manipulating the price of the digital token called Tronix. Sun and his company sought to have the case dismissed. Sun is a polarizing figure in the world of crypto. I don't need to know that much about his history. I don't really care. But yeah, so his purchase of $75 million worth of World Liberty tokens, which he's touted in his social media posts, could set the Trump family up to eventually collect tens of millions of dollars, as the family is entitled to 75% of the token's revenues. So yeah, Trump's he's making it very easy for people to just bribe, because you can't really trace crypto. World Liberty is just one of the several crypto projects the president and his family have set up in recent months, raising concerns about potential corruption. By its nature, crypto offers a particularly easy way to anonymously or otherwise funnel money into assets that directly benefit the president and his family. Now, anyone in the world can essentially deposit money into the bank account of President of the USA with a couple of clicks. That's fun. Every favor, geopolitical, corporate, or personal, is now on sale right out in the open. The SEC declined to comment. Neither the White House nor Sun responded to a request for comment. Wow. So the Sun case comes as the Trump administration appears to be opening the door for potential corruption beyond crypto. Critics across the political spectrum say that it's a troubling trend for a president and a White House that is ditching guardrails at an alarming speed and gutting the government's ability to combat corruption. The president has come full circle on crypto, which he once dismissed as a scam. It's been a mixed blessing for the industry, which has been working to shed its well-earned reputation for illicit activities. On one hand, crypto advocates seeking to establish a legitimate regulatory framework, on one hand, crypto advocates seeking to establish a legitimate regulatory framework have welcomed Trump's broadly positive rhetoric on digital assets. But Trump's meme coin ventures, along with his pardoning of Ross Ulbricht, the founder of the Silk Road criminal enterprise, and the SEC's heel turn on its case against Sun, are the kind of fringe causes that reinforce the industry's association with bad actors. Yeah. So basically, this guy just paid $75 million and his court case got dropped. And this is going to happen more and more and more. We're going to start seeing so many bad people just use the system to buy themselves out of trouble. And with that, I'm going to take a little break to say thank you guys for being here. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Thank you so much for all the likes. Let's try to get up to at least, let's hit 10,000 at first, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. And share the live out too. The more you share the live, the more people join up. So thank you for all the shares. Thank you for all the likes. I'm going to read through some of the comments here because I didn't look at the screen while I was reading. Elon said on X that he's planning for a new world order. Yeah. See, that's the funny part, right? I mean, these guys that voted in these absolute criminals are the ones that are so against the new world order. They're the ones that are, the WEF, new world order. They believe in all that stuff. And yet the new world order is happening right in front of their eyes by the extreme right-wing governments of the world, and now with Trump at the helm, and yet they don't see it. They don't see it. They don't see the fact that all their rights are getting taken away. Musk basically said the other day that he's cutting all entitlement spending, which means Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. People are about to lose that. And everybody's getting scammed. And yet, for some way, somehow, they still don't see that they voted in the New World Order. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I don't know if you guys saw my video on my own personal page today. It was a really long one. It's actually like my short, shitty videos do way better than my long form videos sometimes. But I read an article this morning that literally made me physically ill. And it was about an investigative journalist who infiltrated something called the ARC, which is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship Conference. It's a massive international gathering of powerful conservatives, and it's co-funded by Jordan Peterson. He is the leader of this conference. And basically what this article says is that it is a meticulously, like, highly organized, high-level strategy session that's designed to undermine climate change, human rights, and social progress. So what they're doing is they're branding themselves as the replacement for the WEF. That's how they're branding themselves. But the whole point is to prop up fossil fuel interests, undermine climate science, and push the world even further towards right-wing extremisms. And these, I'm just gonna read you some of it. The author does describe stepping into a sea of well-dressed, powerful conservatives, fossil fuel executives, tech industry leaders, and high-profile right-wing politicians who all gathered to hear Jordan Peterson and others declare war on climate action and progressive politics. Peterson, now who's more than a YouTube personality, stood confidently on the stage and proclaimed, "It's time to stop our obsession with carbon altogether." Climate denial was only a part of it, though. The conference was filled with tons of attacks on diversity, inclusion, progressive values. The speakers that were speaking on stage over the 3-day period ranted about Western civilization being under attack by immigrants and LGBTQ rights and feminism. They preached, the good old return to traditional family values, which means white males dominantly in charge, women at home as homemakers and nothing else, rigid gender roles. Like we know what it's about. But this investigative journalist was talking about his experience, and he was saying how he felt so sick and so worried when he was there because people were cheering for it and clapping for it. And this is the part that he said that creeped him out the most, is that there was security guards there nicknamed the White Coats, and they roamed the conference ensuring that no outsider disrupted the event. There was VIP sections for high-level oil execs, closed-door meetings for top-tier attendees, and a cult-like devotion to Peterson's rhetoric. And he said that the most terrifying part of this whole thing was the fact that the politicians and the executives were working together hand in hand. And they kept talking about how they're going to ride the conservative wave to basically make more profits while they dismantle climate regulations worldwide. At one point, the author says that he came to the realization that it wasn't just about climate denial, it was about a full-scale culture war. And that's what they want to do, is a full-blown culture war. And at one point, he even said that this wasn't even just a conference, it was a war council. And the crazy part that I want to point out is that he said there was a ton of Canadian conservative politicians there. The two that he talked about here were, I'm going to try to find them. There was Candace Bergen and Leslyn Lewis. So those are two members of the Conservative Party, and there was a bunch more conservative politicians there as well. But I mean, we have to remember that Pierre Poilievre did a sit-down interview with Jordan Peterson like 2 months ago. So like we know exactly where he's at. And he said Canadian politicians were there in the masses. They were making deals with executives. They were listening to all of it and clapping for it. And this means that this agenda is coming for Canada. And they're openly organizing. The author left the conference feeling devastated. It wasn't just the horrifying rhetoric. It was realizing how powerful this movement has become. And he said, this is not just a few unhinged conservatives ranting on social media. It's a coordinated, well-funded international effort to kill climate action, dismantle social progress, and maintain corporate dominance. And they're winning. So it made me feel nauseous to read it. It was hard. It was a hard read. It took me a while to be able to gather my thoughts and make notes and then make a video about it. Is the live freezing for anybody but Jana? Seems fine to me. Once. I did have a phone call come in at one point that I had to cancel, so maybe that's what it was. Yeah, Danielle Smith is going to Florida for a speaking event. She's going to be at, it's called PragerU, and she's going to be speaking with Ben Shapiro, far-right extremist, who told Justin Trudeau that Canada will become the 51st state, and then they're going to force him to work on the Panama Canal. That's what he tweeted back in January. And now Danielle Smith is going to go do a full-blown conference with him in Florida. And apparently she's advocating for Alberta and Canada. And she's going there on taxpayer dollars. So, that's awesome. I bet you so many people in Alberta are happy that their tax dollars are being spent on that. I'm sure that there's, I know she's got her supporters, so if you're one of her supporters in these comments, I don't care. I know there's a few of you out there, but I also know there's hordes of you that cannot stand her, that do live in Alberta. So, yeah, she's advocating her own interests. She's not advocating for Canada. We know that. That's just what she says out loud. But she's advocating for her own interests. We all know that she's a mega suck-up, right? She was down at Mar-a-Lago 2 months ago with Jordan Peterson and Kevin O'Leary, so we know exactly what boat she's in. She's part of the elite conservatives that are going to be in the pockets of these giant executive billionaires, and they're going to be paid off to spread their right-wing agenda so that these guys don't have to listen to any sort of climate policies, don't have to listen to any sort of progressive policies, so they can just take advantage of the people and get even more wealthy. Like, when is it enough? When is it enough? When do we call it what it is? It's a sickness to have that much money and want more. More. Like, you can't even spend that in 10 lifetimes, but you still need more. These people have the money to save this whole world. These people have the money to feed every starving child. These people have the money to stop every war, but they just want more. Like, it's a sickness. It's an absolute sickness. Yeah, it's all the Democrats, dude. Totally. It's the Democrats. It's the WF. I'm actually I get paid $3 trillion every month to speak on behalf of the WEF. Yeah, I'm a giant WEF puppet over here. I love my paycheck. It's great. Oh, man. Unreal. I mean, she knows that she can't legally annex Alberta, but who knows what these guys can do with force. I mean, we're seeing it all over the world. It doesn't matter what the rules are. It doesn't matter what international laws are. Bad guys do what they want to do. I don't know how to direct you to the article that I just read, but I can tell you the name of it. And then if you Google search it, you'll be able to find it. It's called I Spent 3 Days at Jordan Peterson Anti-Climate ARC Conference. Here's what I saw. So if you type in like, I spent 3 days at a Jordan Peterson anti-climate conference, I'm sure it'll come up for you. I doubt that there's a bunch of them that, yeah, just type that into Google and it'll take you there. And if you want to, you can go to my own personal page, which is Frontline Feminist, and I made a video there about it, and I used the article as my green screen, so you can see the article name right there, and you can type it in and find it. Exactly, right? Just like you said, Trump and Gaza, prime example, no care or concern for the people. Exactly, they can do whatever they want. When you've got that much money, you don't have to listen to any kind of laws. You're welcome. Yeah, so those are kind of the big news. Trump's tariff tantrums and Doug Ford's reaction. Is it good? Is it bad? Things with Ukraine they're getting a lot of European support, which is really, really good. I just read today though, but I don't want to talk too much about it until I know more. But I did see in an article today that now the Trump administration is thinking that they're not going to cut off their intelligence, that they want to give intelligence back to Ukraine, which I don't know. The whole thing seems weird. They're going back and forth. Zelensky went down to Saudi Arabia to have a conference with the Trump administration. So I don't know if it's something that came out of that conference, but I'm guessing it probably is. But Europe is getting it together, and like Europe is sending out some big red flags, and they're trying to get as tough on the Trump administration and come together right now. Like they're realizing their need to get a stronger military, to have stronger bonds between each other, to ban platforms like X. Romania the other day finally, oh, so grateful for this, but they finally made sure that Călin Georgescu can't run in the elections. He was the pro-Putin puppet, where the elections were canceled back in November because they found out that there was a massive amount of money coming from Russia that was dumped into his campaign to create bots and fake ads and basically brainwash people to vote for him, because what he wanted to do to Romania is pull them out of the EU and pull them out of NATO, which is crazy because Romania does not have the means to be on their own. Like the people of Romania would suffer so much, but they got brainwashed by Russian propaganda. And in Eastern Europe, that is something that's very, very common. People in Eastern Europe have been dealing with Russian propaganda since before the end of World War II. So it's nothing new to them. It's just this worked really well because they targeted young people specifically on TikTok. TikTok was their number one platform that they used to influence and to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of bots, and paid off influencers to make all kinds of content about this guy. And anybody who didn't use TikTok, like the most Googled search in Romania the day after the first elections was, who is Călin Georgescu? People had no idea who this guy was. He just like rose out of nowhere because it was only spread on the internet. So when they looked into that and they looked into the investigations, or they did the investigations, they saw that almost 1 million euros was poured in from Russia into that campaign. And he was going to be a threat to our democracy. He was going to take the country into an authoritarian dictatorship, pull them out of NATO, and then Russia would have been able to use our country to start going after Ukraine from the east, western side, right? Because we border Ukraine right there on the bottom. So I'm glad that, my family back home is very happy that the elections were canceled, and now there is confirmation that there's no way that he can run again at the end of the spring when there's going to be the new elections. So, but obviously the country's in shambles after this because you have people protesting and they're all, pro Georgescu. It's not the majority. It's very similar to the Freedom Convoy in Canada. So there's just very loud, angry people. They're looting the streets and smashing glass right now. And so the police has told especially like progressive political figures to make sure that they stay inside for the next 2 weeks just for their own safety. So it's a little bit crazy right now, but things will settle down, and more people are starting to kind of wake up to what happened. And they're starting to realize that they were lied to and they were manipulated online. So yeah, another loud and angry. I mean, it was a minority that was big enough to get him the first vote. And it was voter apathy. Tons of people didn't go out to vote, but those far right conservatives were out there at the ballot box like they are here, like they were in the States, like they were all over Europe, right? So this is a global movement to place right-wing governments into power all over the world. So it's the progressives and the leftists that really have to get their shit together and go out there and vote. And the problem is that we have a lot of people that if they knew what was going on in the world, they would be more motivated to vote. But we have a massive amount of our population that doesn't know what's happening. I meet people every day And they're like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm surviving. I'm sad that this is happening or that's happening. And they're like, what? Oh, I don't even listen to the news. That sounds way too depressing. And I try to tell them, like, you need to pay attention. You have to pay attention. And they go, no, that's just too depressing. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. So unfortunately, we have a lot of those people too. And we're going to have a lot of those people not vote. I can almost guarantee that 40% of our country is not going to go out and vote. It's going to be up to the rest of us. If you can't figure out if I'm right or left, then you haven't watched me long enough. And to be honest, lately I've been finding myself to really be more of a centrist than anything else, because I'm finding that the sides are so polarizing, and I'm all about balance. And we're in this weird state of the world right now where things are so dark that I feel like being in the center is probably the best thing to do, so that there's appeal to both sides, so that both sides can have some of their needs met on some level. Jean Chrétien actually said that in his speech the other night. He said that right now, for where we are in terms of the political tensions around the world and the economic struggles with this trade war, one of the things that we have to do if we want to be successful at, keeping our sovereignty and keeping a clear mind, is to actually be very centrist in the way that we approach things. So, I mean, if I do a political compass test, like when it comes to just my personal ideology of like the utopian world I would want to live in, I'm definitely like more far to the left. I definitely believe in a lot more socialist principles, and I still believe in, like universal health care and having child care. And, I would love to have 4-day work weeks of 10 hours a day rather than 5-day work week with 8 hours a day. All those kind of socialist principles that we see in a lot of the Nordic countries, I'm all for that. But like for where we are right now in the state of the world and in where we are right now politically, I'm going to kind of put myself more in center. But when it comes to voting, I don't really care that much in terms of like, ABC is good for me, and whatever party in my riding has the highest chances of beating out the Conservatives, that's the party I'm going to vote for. And specifically in my riding, that's probably going to be NDP. If things change, I'm going to keep my eye out. I'm going to constantly look at the polling. I'm going to look at past results, and I'm going to make an educated decision so that I can make sure that I don't throw my vote away. Because that's my biggest thing right now, just making sure that we don't get in a government that is aligning itself with these extreme far-right executives. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, UBI would be amazing, because that's a great way for us to actually keep our economy going and cut down on other costs. Right? If everybody was getting a universal basic income, then it would actually cut a lot of the other public spending. But people don't get that, and it's scary for them, so we don't talk about it that much. And yeah, we are going to need it soon. But it depends where we're going to end up, right? Like, are we going to end up being okay, or are we going to end up going to war? Like that's a reality right now. I mean, what happens, what's going to be happening in Europe, what's happening in Ukraine, that's going to decide our future as well, right? What if one of the NATO countries gets touched by a missile? Does that mean we trigger Article 5? Like, what does it mean? We don't know. We just don't know. The world is so incredibly unpredictable right now. So I'm all about taking it one day at a time, figuring things out as we go, and trying to make balanced, calm, rational decisions as we get information about what's going on every day. Because things are changing, as you guys have been seeing, and as we've all been experiencing since Trump came into power, things are changing like every 24 hours. So it's very hard for us to predict what's going to happen, what we're going to need. Definitely one of the things that I would hope that our government, whatever government that's going to be, hopefully it's not going to be conservatives, but We have to do the best we can, right? Even if it is a conservative minority, if we end up with something like that, we still have to hound them. At the end of the day, they still have to represent us. So we need to go out there and, you know, make sure that they're doing what we want. I definitely don't want that to happen in any way, shape, or form. But no matter what, like, our fight isn't over. And I've said that for a long time too. Like, no matter what happens in this election, the fight is not over. Even if the Liberals get a minority government, like, the fight is nowhere near over. We're in this for at least a decade, maybe 2 decades, maybe the rest of our lives. We don't know. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be interesting. But one of the things that I was gonna say that I really want our government to focus on, and I might get some slack for this, but we need to figure out our energy infrastructure ASAP, right? I mean, Brian Mulroney back in the 80s kind of ruined us, and we got effed over when he decided to kill the National Energy Program. Because if we didn't kill that back then, we would have had way more refineries, and we would have been completely, you know, energy independent right now. But we're stuck having to send our oil to the United States to get it refined, which sucks. But again, Brian Mulroney killed that for us. And then other politicians, thank you, and then other politicians just kept going forward because they had to make the choice between short-term profits or long-term sustainability. And we know how executives like to run, right? Everything's about short-term gain, not about long-term sustainability. For some reason, they can't think long-term. So we have to, as much as, again, people might not like me saying this, but we have to build more refineries in Canada. We have to invest in that. We have to build them. We have to make sure that we're doing it in the most environmentally friendly way, even though I understand that refineries ruin the environment around them, but we have to. Like, we're not at a point right now where we can think that we're going to get into, you know, perfect green energy within the next 2 years. Like, it's unrealistic, right? That's completely unrealistic. Yeah, we have to develop tech to help filter carbon, but, you know, we're not the biggest polluters. Like, yes, it's good for us to, you know, I was talking to a conservative person the other day. We actually had a really nice conversation. We ended up agreeing on a lot of things, but we're politically different just because of certain beliefs that we have around, you know, like, who's more corrupt. But we were talking about the fact that, like, when we look at the comparison between Canada and other countries, we're really not that big of a polluter in comparison to China and India, right? I mean, we're a drop in the bucket compared to them. But I made the analogy of, like, throwing cigarette butts in the ocean. So just because we throw 1 cigarette butt in the ocean and China and India throw 100 cigarette butts in the ocean, does that mean that we should just keep throwing that cigarette butt in the ocean? No. Right? We still have to do our part. To me, it's a moral thing. We know that there's a climate crisis. We have to do something about it. But for where we are right now, we should focus on building refineries versus dumping a bunch of money into green energy. We still have to put money into green energy. We have to use technology that sequesters carbon, all that. That's all great. But we do need to take care of ourselves in terms of energy and oil because of what's happening in the United States. If the United States was still our ally and we were getting along and everything was great, then we wouldn't have to worry about that, and we could spend more money on green energy. But for where we are right now, due to the political tensions between us and the States, we have to work our way to become energy independent. Even if something happens and, you know, the States fixes its issues, and I mean, it's not going to happen, but let's just pretend everything goes back to normal. It's taught us a massive lesson for Canadians, right? It's taught us the lesson that we have to be independent so that we don't rely on somebody else, so they can't use us and they can't play these games with us. So, yeah. Oh God, Americans just think they're so tough. Dude, like, you guys haven't won a war. We've came to help you out every single time. Like, why are you guys so war hungry? Like, why do you want to come and invade Canada and, like, off your neighbors? Seriously. Like, why? Like, is it just like, do you just enjoy watching other people suffer? Like, do you go to bed every night thinking like, oh man, I can't wait to pew pew my neighbors up north. I'm gonna have so much fun doing it. Like, what is it? What is it with you guys? It's such a sick, twisted fantasy of like just making other people suffer. It's just weird, man. It's just weird. Yeah, I know that they're just all talk. I know most of them would probably try to get out of the army by saying they have bone spurs. But it's still a sickening thing, right? Like that's what they fantasize about. They fantasize about like going to war with their closest friends and allies. It's just weird. Like even with all of your guys' threats that, your orange Cheeto Mussolini has placed on us, most Canadians are not going to bed at night fantasizing about, causing damage to their neighbors. Like most of us still love Americans. So it's just a weird American thing where they're like, yeah, I'm a conqueror. I'm gonna daydream about taking over people's lives. Like it's just weird, man. That's all I gotta say. It's just weird. All right, well, I think I've talked long enough. I'm gonna open up the panel. I'm only taking friendlies. If I don't know you, I probably won't let you up. Just being honest, I don't really feel like arguing with some of the Americans that were in here that were letting us all know about their fantasies to take us over. And yeah, I don't need to deal with that. But let me open up my requests and then we'll get some of you guys up here. There we go. Allow requests from viewers and we should be good. Hello. Still connecting. Let's see if you connect properly.
Boo! I think I made it.
Hello. You
Hello.
did.
Yay!
How's it going,
I
guys?
made it in the safe zone. Safe list. Yay!
Here, I'm just going to change the layout real quick so that we can get 8 people up here.
There are a lot of people.
There was. Yeah, I saw a bunch of people in the requests. So
There's 82 people in this live right now. She's kind of hopping right now.
That she is. Yeah.
Yeah, well, whenever we talk about United States and Canada relations, it always gets a little spicy, doesn't it?
You know what,
That
though?
it does.
Spicy's good. You know what? We need a little bit of spice. We can take it. I don't mind hot sauce on my poutine.
Actually, that really makes me want poutine.
I know my buddy had butter chicken poutine today. I'm like, stop. I'm like in Mackenzie and there's no restaurants here. I'm like, just stop, bro.
But it's Tuesday. You should act like I did and have tacos.
Oh, I have a big pot roast in the oven. I'm doing taco salad tomorrow. I've got little molds and I put them in the air fryer with my tortillas and I make the little fried taco balls.
Okay, guys, you're making me really hungry.
Yeah, stop.
I mean, if you want to be even more hungry, I got pierogi poutine like a couple nights ago from a local joint. So
stop. Now you're talking.
What is that?
Now you're killing Frontline.
I think
Frontline,
this is a safe space, guys. Okay, this is getting a little bit triggering.
Safe space unless you have food.
Right. All right. So what we're gonna do, so that we don't all talk over each other, I'm gonna get everybody to mute their mics to start, and then we're gonna go through one by one so that you guys can share your thoughts on what we were talking about tonight. And if you weren't here for the whole thing, I'll do a quick recap. So, us waking up to Trump saying that he's going to put more tariffs on us, Doug Ford backing down, saying he's going to pause the tariffs, going down to Washington to apparently talk about a deal. Then we also talked about the Jordan Peterson event, the giant conference where there was a lot of political conservatives that were talking to elites about how they're going to use conservative right-wing extremism to basically kill climate action so they can make more profits. And then we talked about crypto and how Trump is most likely crashing the markets on purpose so that the billionaires can buy low, and how that will eventually make it so that the dollar starts to diminish, and he's going to try to sell us onto using crypto instead, and how he's pardoning people now just by getting a lot of money from them with his Trump coin. So yeah, let's open it up. We'll start with Joe, and then we'll go from there.
I think I saw the doubling of the tariffs from Trump, and I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of expected because he's a dumbass. And I'm figuring, I was sure like somebody in the steel industry or aluminum industry is banging on the doors saying, "You got to stop! You're killing us, not anybody else, but just us." But then I saw Ford's like, "Oh, well, we're going to roll back our 25%." I'm like, because we're going to go down there to talk to him. I'm like, what are you doing? He's not in this for economic debate. He's not in this for some sort of trade issue we're having. This has nothing to do. It didn't come from a trade issue. It's not going to be a trade issue. It's not the same way it wasn't about the drugs. It's not about the immigration. It's not about any of this stuff. He's after something else, and until somebody starts figuring it out, that's what it is. This entire wasted trip is going to be exactly that. It's a wasted trip. I don't know what Ford's going down there for, and I'm not even convinced Ford's really.
I mean, it's destabilizing the economy. That's why I think he's going back and forth all the time, because every time he does that, the stocks go.
You and I see that, but why the hell is Ford and his advisors not seeing it? Like I'm
not genuinely
like
wondering if Ford was maybe pressured, because like there's a lot of businesses right now that are freaking out. They're freaking out about their costs. They're freaking out about losing money. They're freaking out, am I going to be able to keep people employed? And so I'm wondering if that maybe had something to do with it. Don't know yet. That's what I mean. I just don't know. So
that's all very justifiable, and that makes total sense in regards to, I mean, Canadian businesses absolutely can be freaking out. There's a lot of good reasons to be freaking out. All of it makes completely no sense. U.S. tanking right now, I mean, the entire stock market losing, was it? I saw a quote about $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion in value. Just gone from the stock market, is freaking out the investors, and it's going to free fall the market. Will probably even more until
lots of people lost lots of money already. Like my parents lost a bunch of money in their investments because of all of this.
And like their investments people are making tanked. Money off of this. People are making money off this. If you're not sure how people make money off of a tanking stock market, look up short selling. It's a completely insane way of how to make money without doing any work, but people will make tons of money on this. This is the entire GameStop fiasco.
GameStop saga,
the GameStop saga. That's how people were trying to mess with these people who were making money off of tanking stocks. But now the entire economy is tanking like this, so there's people making money off this for sure, and I'm sure that people are in the government are getting a little bit of a kickback out of that, or corporate or a PAC donation. But sure. I really don't know what we're going to be going down there for. We're
going to find out. We might find out it's a big nothing burger.
That's it. Yeah.
We'll find out. I'm going to go down the list. Next. I'm going to go down one column, and then I'm going to go to the other column. So I'm going to have TT, Cabin, go next.
Yeah, I'm just kind of absorbing.
I'm still listening. I'm just going to go open a window, but I'm still here.
No worries. I don't have a lot to say yet. So like I'll defer to everybody else, but I'm just kind of absorbing all of this. I mean, I heard an economist speaking about the whole tanking the economy plan, and also was speaking about how it's not going to even have the outcome that he's going for, because it's also just ruining the economy there. So yeah, it's alarming. I'm still kind of stuck on last week too, even though these are like new economic problems again. There was so much like creeping fascism last week or earlier this week that I'm still kind of wrapped up in that. But anyway, I'll listen to what y'all have to say about today's news.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you if you hear something that sparks something. To be I can't see the end of your name, but I know because I follow you. To be perfect, right?
To be perfectly frank, yeah.
To be perfectly frank, yes. Okay, I was like, oh, I know I follow you. I know that there's a Canadian maple leaf at the end of that name.
Yeah, this is
What's going on? What do you think?
I
You got
man,
some good
well,
videos, good content, dude.
there's so many different takes on this, and I'm going to preface whatever I'm going to say with this, that none of us have any idea how this is going to go, where it's going to go, and what the strategy for Trump and his people is. Nobody knows. We're all kind of shooting in the dark here in this one. Um, some big things that I think are at play here, and I'm going to say this is Canada is just as bad at this as America is right now. Is I strongly feel that most of this is just posturing. It's confuse, confound, and show strength. That's what it is, and that's what Trump is doing in his threats of tariffs, threats of annexation. None of it is real. I think that he's very aware that it's going to cause more harm than good. I don't think that there's an end motive of trying to make rich people richer in this instance because he's tanking the businesses of some of his closest allies. Um, and I don't think that tariffs are useful for Canada as a retaliatory measure. If they want to tariff us, and then get fucked. That's kind of my stance on this: is go ahead and tariff us. You're the one that pays it, so do your thing. And in the meantime, we can go carry on with our business and diversify our economic interests and go elsewhere.
I've thought that too. I just know that a lot of it's going to create that rhetoric of like, oh look, Canada's weak. It's not doing anything. It's not fighting back. So
100%.
like,
That's
but you're
exactly
right.
why
Like at the end of
we're
the day, the
retaliating.
tariff, yeah, because the tariffs only hurt us. So I've thought
They
about
do,
that too.
yeah,
Like I think we would be better off if we just boycott the shit out of American products.
absolutely.
Um,
I'm with you
but
100%.
but I get it, right? Like people want to see that we're strong and that we're doing something, and not to mention that like that they're going to use this to talk badly about our government because that's what they do. So they're
Right.
going to try to spin this in every way, shape, and form.
Like look at the current politics in Canada right now. Like the Liberal Party is like gaining massive amounts of ground because of the perceived firm stance against America, right? Even though it's hurting us economically to tariff America, they see that they are going to gain political clout from doing it. So it's the same thing back and forth, right? Like America postures, Canada postures back, and nobody benefits.
Oh, it's
The benefit would be we just let them do their thing, and then we come up with a plan for how we're going to literally allow America to just go fucking do their thing, and we can do our thing.
yeah. It's an eggplant measuring contest. That's what it is.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the legend, and we'll come
Hi.
back to everyone. Don't worry.
It's my first time up here. I'm going to agree with everything. I really don't know if tariffing our side is really going to help. I think it would be better to let the Canadians get all pissed off and, you know, boycott everything American. I'm trying to do that right now. I think the other thing is too. It's like with Doug Ford, putting 25% surcharge or whatever on thing. Let's do that with all our exports. Like that would be hitting them with a double whammy. There are things too that I think we have to really think about. Is that right now our military depends a lot on American equipment, and we've got an order in for a whole pile of F-35s that are supposed to start coming in around um, 2026, I believe it is. That we're supposed to start getting the first ones. What's going to stop Mr. Trump there from turning around saying, "Oh well, we're going to punish you. We're going to cancel that order." We've got to start thinking about this. We've got to start looking towards maybe allies in Europe and stuff like that to build up our our defenses. It's kind of scary to think that our friends next door are now in the position to basically not only try to squash us financially, but take away our ways of defending ourselves. So that's one thing I never hear a lot of people talk about. That's one thing that really concerns me.
Well, I know that Europe is starting a lot of their own weapons manufacturing now because of all of the craziness. So I'm sure that if we stay in good contact with them, which obviously, like everybody loves Canada, we won't have a problem getting our weapons from Europe eventually.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere where there's some German companies trying to sell us submarines, and I know we just announced our new, what was it, River class destroyers, but still, that's we need to build up, and we need to diversify where we're purchasing our equipment from. You can't just if one supplier, if we're dependent on one supplier and that goes down, you need to have a backup. And I don't know if we really have that right now or not.
That's why we just got to kind of keep it as drawn out as possible so that we can buy time and get prepared.
Yeah, like I said though, I think putting putting surcharges on exports going down in the states, making them more expensive to, and that there let the people let us you know decide okay, we're gonna we're gonna buy Canadian, we're gonna buy Mexican, we're gonna buy anybody else but American, and then increase the
Sorry, I have
prices
to
of
stop you
product.
for a second to read out a comment because it's going to make all of us laugh. Hey, American here. If y'all could repeat what you did in the War of 1812, that would be great.
Well,
I
I think
had to
that
just
person
say
knows already.
it.
with
Matthew, thank you
modernized
for that
weaponry.
comment. It made us happy to hear that. It was a good little tension breaker. So, anyway, sorry I interrupted. I just wanted to read that out.
Okay, but like I said, that I think really increasing the prices of what we're selling them, because we control the prices, and maybe don't tariff that, because that's going to basically hurt our prices. But let the people we're pissed off enough now that I see it all the time. I went into Walmart. I'm in Surrey, Langley, in British Columbia. And I went into
Oh,
well,
nice.
not
We're
Walmart.
close.
I went into Costco the other day, and it's always, even on weekdays, it's impossible to find a parking spot. There were so many empty parking spots in Costco that it was amazing. So I think the people are a lot of the people up in Canada are speaking out, and they are trying to make things. I really don't know if I work in retail myself, and I really don't like to see my so the people working in the American companies. I feel sorry for them. I think it's better to maybe go in and buy only Canadian, look at the labels instead, maybe really doing a boycott, because that hurts their livelihood, the employees there. But
Yep.
it's hard. It's a hard call.
Yep. I went grocery shopping today and I looked at every single product and I was like, "Oh, I have to put this back. Oh, I have to put this back." But you know what? That's okay. I bought some
Well,
pizza made in Germany,
I
some
had I
frozen
actually
pizza made in Germany, and then everything else was Canadian. But sometimes we do have to spend a little bit extra for some Canadian products, but I'm willing to do it. I will eat less calories so that I can boycott American products. And
well
I
I
saw
had
I saw it on the shelves. Like I did see the difference that there was more American products on the shelves and people were specifically buying Canadian versions.
I had one funny situation there. There's those little sesame seed snaps, and you can buy them at Costco in the bulk. They're wrapped up. I was buying those, and I thought, oh, well, they're probably made in the States, or else, well, if I'm lucky, they're made in China. I looked at where they were made, and they're actually made in Poland.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
all
how
I
I
have for
felt
now.
about my frozen pizza today.
That's all I have for now.
Awesome. Sasquatch, hello.
How's it going, guys?
It's going. Let us know what you think about everything.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts. I'm going to start off by saying that I really do think that someone was saying we should have sort of an import tax on energy, and I am thinking from sitting here with a fellow BCer, we send hydro to Oregon and Washington and California and Alberta, by the way, because they can't keep their power grid on. And I'm thinking that's a fantastic idea. I feel really bad. I know people in those states that are really good, hardworking folks, but I think that some sort of increase on price or a tax on energy to the states might be a good counter thing. And we need to stop selling raw wood and so much cheap crude to the states. We were talking about refineries. And one of the hangups is that we aren't necessarily very well equipped to process Western crude, which is notoriously thick. And as someone that's taking their heavy duty mechanic ticket and I'm planning to run to the oil fields and go wrench on trucks there, I get DMs from my friends like Frosty D and some of those guys are like, when are you getting your tickets? Like, we need heavy duty mechanics. Like, come wrench on trucks, get dual ticketed. We need you guys out here. Like, and that's where I'm going. So I would love to see not just energy independence, but some diversity as well. Like, I don't have a problem with international trade. I really don't, as long as it's done in a way that we are not screwing ourselves on the price and that we're not dealing with idiotic fascists that are, because we have no need to like increase tariffs unless it's a counter tariff. And really, at the end of the day, what does it do? It screws all of the people, all the consumers, and small businesses that can't compete and that aren't going to be able to gobble up all these stocks when the market crashes and weather the storm and weather bankruptcy while these big guys float the market crash. And I just like anyway, I'm just like a very anti oligarchy, pro NDP person, and any way that we can have it where small logging businesses, guys like Edison Motors, any kind of small business can do it in an ethical way and can support Canada. And if we can keep it here or trade internationally with people that have brain cells, I'm here for it. My other thought, and I don't see a lot of this going around, and I understand the buy Canadian, and it's not a bad idea, but do we have concerns that by doing that, are we further monopolizing ourselves and kind of pushing ourselves in a corner as consumers? And do we think old Jimmy Boy and Galen are going to, be drooling at the bit, waiting to jack up prices on Canadian goods? Because that's my fear, is that I have no problem supporting Canadian businesses, but it's going to filter through the oligarchy and they're just going to profit off it. I'm not okay with that, and you try and do your research and you don't want to support anyone that's, doesn't align with your ethics. And it's hard to shop Canadian because it's always like, as far as groceries go, it's going to filter through that oligarchy. And really, is that Canadian farmer probably going to benefit? Yes. But is it going to force us to, possibly get price gouged more? Probably. And that I'm not okay with it. It's like, how do you go about it? Like here, there's a small farmers market. We've got a co-op here. There's no Save On, there's no Loblaws or Superstore or anything like that here. So I'm pretty lucky. Co-op's pretty good. But that's my concern, is that if we're all just so focused on shop Canadian, shop Canadian, shop Canadian, are we just giving Jimmy and Galen another way to price gouge us? And I'm not okay with that, right? And where's that line of we're doing good versus are we just kind of, the evil that's closer to home, right? Like, at what point are we just giving the oligarchy more power here in Canada, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say actually exactly what Happy said over here. The increase in local demand would actually generate more competition. So for those of us that have the opportunity, if we have to drive an extra 20 minutes, for example, to go straight to a butcher rather than shopping at Superstore, right? Let's take that extra 20 minutes and do it. If we can get ourselves to a farm market, or for example, like right beside my house, I have a little like Persian market, and they bring in everything from like breads and ice cream, and then they have their own vegetables and fruits. You don't always like find what you're looking for. So your mentality around what you're going to eat needs to change.
Yeah.
You need to change your mentality to, I eat what I find that's available, that supports my local grocery stores and the small businesses. And the more that we spend money in those small businesses, the more Superstore is going to be forced to keep their prices lower too.
Yep.
Because then nobody's going to go there. So we have to shop smart. And I know that there's people that are in areas where like you can't get away from it, right? But those of us that can, if we can go to these local shops and local butchers and local fisheries, whatever, we make it better for those people that are forced to shop at Superstore and other places like that.
Absolutely. And I'm lucky there's Mennonites up here and they've got great meat. And then one of my buddies has eggs. So I'm lucky I get to buy my eggs and I can get some meat depending on what they've got and how quick they sell it, because God, their stuff is good. And because I have an iguana and I'm diabetic, I grow a ton of produce. It's not going very well inside. I tried some old grow lights and they just spindled and went so thin and stringy and died. So I'm trying to, and shooting to seed, I'm trying to kind of experiment with growing in the winter, but the summer it's great. I've just got a big brick garden and my iguana just lives in there and he just eats seeds, and I try and buy Canadian seeds, and if I can buy BC, even better, and if I can harvest my own seeds from last year, even better.
Even better.
We've got a little seed library here at the library here, and it's so cute. And I'm like, I have so much stuff, like weird collard greens and arugula. I have so many weird seeds. I'm like, I have so much stuff to dump at the seed library this year.
That's great. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I fully support everybody supporting your local agriculture. Like for me, when I go to work, because I work, I live in an urban area, but I work more out kind of in the country.
Gotcha.
So I take the back roads on my way home so I can hit up as many of the local farms as I possibly can. It's harder in the winter, right? There's not that much availability, but during and now that we're, coming into spring, it's BC, things are already getting warmer. I'll be able to buy most of my food from the local grocers, the local farms, the local butchers, and then I'll go to Superstore for like the tiny little things that you can't find at these places, like tea bags or coffee beans or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
in the lower mainland, there's probably a lot of little farms down there. I know my friend is in Chilliwack, and what is the name of the flower shop she's at? And they grow in their little greenhouse a lot of the flowers that they've got. Oh my God, what is it called? I'm drawing a blank. I'm such a terrible.
I can come back to you. And you can think about it, or you can drop it down into the chat.
Well, and I'm going to drop off here quickly. So if anyone else wants to come up, I'm starting to get shaky and I'm probably going to go eat here. And then I'll pop back on later and let someone else take a spot here. I'll take all my lovely gifts and run and let somebody else talk here.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your opinion and coming up on the panel. Mrs. Radical.
Hey, it was killing me not to be part of that conversation. It was hard for me not to be part of that conversation because I'm such a big fan of like growing at home. I have a grow light too. And I'm thinking differently about food. So I'm getting lots of flour. We're pre-planning our meals. If we want pizza pops, we're making pizza pops. We're making them homemade.
That sounds delicious.
We're making bread homemade now. We're trying to make different moves to make that successful. It's actually a lot of fun. It takes a few more steps than we planned, but TikTok's an amazing source for finding really good recipes and cheap recipes. And I'm learning to dehydrate. That's something I have never done before. I'm learning to freeze dry soups and things like that. I'm learning to it's a really cool thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit about David Wallace. Do you know who David Wallace is?
Sorry, I had to put my second earbud in.
It's okay. Do you know who David Wallace is?
David Wallace. That name sounds super familiar. I need to put a face.
Are we talking about the guy from the Klondike Papers?
Yes,
the Klondike
sir.
Papers?
Yes, sir. He was the one that dropped the Klondike Papers. So Frontline and I had a conversation the other day, and I'm going to share it with you guys. David Wallace shared, I guess it was about a year ago. He did
the political fixer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he shared with the group that he believed that Pierre Poilievre is not the mark for this next election. That the person that the Conservatives actually want to put up is Doug Ford. And he kind of laid out this strategy. And the way I see things rolling, it looks like to me that could possibly happen. Now, Frontline and I had this conversation the other day, and she checked it out and she said there's no way that Doug Ford could. He missed the time frame, right?
Yeah, I was It's not that I was against what you were saying.
No,
I was just on the other
no.
end of the spectrum of
Yeah,
the conversation to be like,
yeah,
I just don't think that's going to happen. I
yeah.
think he missed his date to be able to do it. It,
But the
unless the
more,
elections are in October, but if they're in June, then I don't see it happening.
But the
And
more I
I
see
don't
Doug,
see Pierre. I don't see Pierre letting go. Like unless he gets kicked out by his own party, I do
but
not
that's
see
what I
him
think
giving
is
it
going to
up.
happen. That's what I think is going to happen. That's my conspiracy theory hat. I've got it on. It's not on behalf of Beaver Politics, this thought, but my thought is that Doug Ford is going to help negotiate our way out of these tariffs. And he is going to look like the biggest badass in Canada. And then he's going to, and Trump is going to say, I want to work with people like Ford. He cares about his people. Like he said about Trudeau a couple of years ago, right? And then, then that'll push the party to going against Pierre Poilievre. His numbers are dropping so drastically.
But I mean, today he publicly said that he thinks that Carney's a great economist. And so I don't know if he's going to get that much conservative backing because the conservatives
Well, he
absolutely
talks in
despise
circles.
Carney. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. I maybe I just don't
So
have enough
remember so
info to
many years
like
ago when he
get
did the
behind
Bud
that
Light
yet.
thing? Remember with the Bud Light thing? You remember that?
Yeah.
Hey, hey, just hear me out for a second. Remember the Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney and the can? Right?
Yeah.
And Kid Rock took out a pew pew and he shot the Bud Light can and he said, "No more LGBTQIA rainbows," and he freaked out, right? And then everybody on the left went and did beautiful TikTok videos of their rainbow Bud Light cans. What happened there? Well, in the background, what a lot of us didn't know is Trump owned the most shares in Bud Light. This was a made up drama. And the only person it actually really hurt was Dylan Mulvaney. It didn't hurt Trump. It didn't hurt Bud Light. It didn't hurt, it attacked and weaponized LGBTQIA. And we helped Trump get a whole bunch of money in his pocket.
I mean, these guys are professional grifters, right? Like that's their thing.
100%.
That's why
So
all
I
of
was,
us are saying that this whole tariff thing is for them to crash the stock market so they can do a pump and dump scheme, right? Like,
I
because we
agree with
know
that
that's what
too.
they do. We know that's what they do. They're grifters.
I have a meeting with my bank tomorrow and
You
I'm
cut out there.
terrified to find out how much I lost.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not even. I'm not even touching that. It's not going to be pretty.
Tomorrow?
Make sure you have
I'm
make sure
scared.
you have wine,
No.
cookies, and ice cream for after you find out. But you are cutting in and out. You're
Okay.
cutting in
I'm
and out
going
a
to
little
drop.
bit, so just
Let me drop. I see some
think
other people that want to pop up and I'll stay in the
stay in the chat with us. Thank you for coming up.
comments.
We always appreciate it. All right, Panda. You guys have been waiting so patiently. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, not a problem. So, I guess going off of what you said about like pipelines and building more refineries, I'm I'm an environmentalist. So normally I would be against those things, but I fully agree that it's the best we can do to make sure that we're energy independent. On the topic of green technology, probably one of the best things to actually get to green technology is, funnily enough, through nuclear energy. It's one of the cleanest ones out there. And once we have that, I guess the support for more green technologies like wind farms, like hydroelectric dams, we'll be able to transition away from nuclear energy.
Yeah. I think it's just, like a lot of the green energy takes a long, long time to build up. And we have to spend our money wisely in the area that we need it the most. But I don't know. I've never actually looked into that, because you make a good point. We've been talking about nuclear energy for a while. I don't know how long it would take to build up, but that's a sustainable, clean, good form of energy.
Yeah, no, and that's something that I've been advocating since I kind of did my own research into it, and I found out it's actually a lot cleaner than I initially thought.
Yeah, it's been brought up in this live actually a couple of times now, so that's something I need to dig more into so that I can understand it better and understand how long it would take to build up. 'Cause these projects are all going to take a couple of years, right? Even if we build more refineries, that's still going to take time.
Exactly. And we have to do what we can to make sure that we are energy independent and that we can support, I guess, basically our own military. Um, I've been kind of starting to see the point in maybe developing our own nuclear pew-pews.
I don't even want to go there, because like none of us should even have them. End of story. You know what I mean?
No,
That's a dark
But
line to cross.
I know, but we do have
Yeah.
them. And
Yep.
unfortunately, that's just something we have to start looking at. Anyway, I'm gonna
Yeah.
drop off because I'm
Thank you,
currently out
though.
grocery shopping. Yeah, not a
Oh,
problem. Not a
great.
problem. Y'all
Support
have
the
a great
Europe,
rest of your
support
day.
Canada and the European countries that are supporting Ukraine every time that you look at the label. All right, pumpkin spice. I'm sorry that you were last. Well, I mean, now that Tiffany and T-Jack have joined, we're going to go to them after. But pumpkin spice,
Hi.
how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. Okay, so Joe was talking about the tariffs. Yeah, I think.
That's
And I
correct.
wanted to
Yeah.
reply to
I'm going
that.
to talk about the tariffs and as well as Ford's response to the tariffs.
So, I looked this up because I thought that I was pretty sure that something was supposed to happen on March 12th. And I was right. There was an executive order on like the 10th of February that was supposed to have, it was specifically about steel and aluminum. So that tariff was like already planned. It wasn't a retaliation, which is, kind of frustrating because of the fact that like all of our news outlets were like, oh, it's a retaliation against Ford's electricity surcharges. What are they called? They're not actually tariffs because you can't charge a tariff to another country. So what is
you,
it? Like
you
excise tax?
can you can actually have a tariff both on things coming in and as well as the things going out. It is considered it can be called a tariff. I think an export charge is also another or as another name for
I
it, but
thought it was.
they could be called.
I heard something in the States that they can only do a tariff if it's like national security.
The reason
not
behind
sure.
a tariff,
Executive-
I'm not
the
sure,
executive
but
branch can only do tariffs if there's like yeah, I heard something about that.
Yeah.
That's why they're going against us, saying, "Oh yeah, it's because of national security. Oh yeah, it's an electricity crisis, right?" It's
Yeah.
otherwise it has to go
Well,
through
Can I
Congress.
can I
and
clarify?
see, yep, go ahead. To be perfectly
Yeah.
frank,
So there's an import tariff and there's an export tariff. An import tariff is one that you charge on the company importing. An export tariff is something you charge on the company exporting. So if we were to do an export tariff, we'd be charging ourselves a tax to export something. In this case, it's a surcharge. So Doug Ford is charging a surcharge on top of the regular rates to American consumers.
Okay.
I think it's like, wouldn't the export tariff still be on the country it's being exported to, and like the import
No, it's
tariff
like
where it's on the country importing?
it's on yourself. It's on the people sending it out, right? To be perfectly frank.
Yeah. It's if you do an export tariff, you're putting the tariff on the exporter. So the
So
company
that
that
would be on
exports the product.
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
So, but it still end up to the states because I mean the company's not going to take the cost; they're
Yeah.
going to
So
pass it along.
if you wanna harm the states when you're exporting something, you would put an export tax or an export surcharge on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
I've
I'm pretty
I've
sure
al-
it would not be called the tariff at that point. It's just
Yeah.
called the
Yeah,
surcharge.
I think another reason why it can't be called a tariff is that what I was reading before all this business is that the premiers don't have the ability to tariff on things in relation to foreign countries. So I don't
That's
even think
correct.
that
Yes.
that's possible.
Mm.
So like he might be doing what is within his power, but I think it's much less substantial. And so, I wanted to ask this earlier, but like, what is Doug Ford doing? Like, why is he going there? Like, it sounds, somebody said it, this is all political posturing from
Well,
Ford. It certainly sounds like that.
it almost
So,
seems
Isaac,
like he was
to
actually
clarify,
able to successfully negotiate Trump down from the upcoming tariffs that are supposed to come out in March, which seems kind of not like terrible. But I am concerned about how all of that came to be that he was the one who was able to do that because like
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it seem like it's
Can I
not
ask the
true.
panel a question?
Mm.
Just out of pure curiosity, since he went off today about it being a not that he would call it a national security crisis if Doug Ford went through with his plan, could that potentially give Trump more power over the people in the United States because they're quote unquote in
Well,
an emergency? Like, could he
well,
use that somehow to
Trump, Trump has
to
done this
to
before. In the last time he was president, he put tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel, saying the reason for it was a national reasons of national security. That's the reason, and
yep.
he didn't say anything why it was national security. But um, we can guess that it's nice cowboy hat. We can guess that it's because Canada produces a ton of aluminum and steel, and China and the U.S. at one point are going to be at war, and if and they need a lot of aluminum and steel to build their military industrial complex, and if Canada decided, no, we didn't want to support you, then that would be a national security threat. But he's used this before.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, could he use that national energy crisis to do something like martial law?
no,
Or
he's going to
no?
use
I don't
that
think so.
with he already has a plan for that already.
Some
That's the
It,
protesters, right?
it's the thing with Mexico actually. Um,
Right,
Oh
it
yeah, I
said within
saw
30
this.
days had to
right,
do a
right, right.
report, and then 90 days after that they have to do a joint report, and then on that 90th day, potentially, depending on the results of that report, it could end up being that they declare martial law if they consider that the risk of the Mexican border is so high that they need to be at war with them.
Well, this is what I read is that because Trump designated the cartels as a terrorist group, which means that they are a national security threat, which means that Trump could possibly ask Congress for permission to use the military into Mexico.
Right. I think that him declaring martial law on his own people is more in line with like him designating T groups out of Palestinian protesters, citizens, and things like that. Like that's not just
Mm.
about deporting people. That's also about presenting the like basically what he's creating through a few legal channels is his own citizens being quote unquote enemy of the state,
Yeah.
which allows him to then take measures.
Sorry to keep, but it's crazy that he's designated people like normal protesters as enemies of the state, but the people that actually attack the Capitol are heroes to him. It's backwards.
That shouldn't surprise you. At this
Yeah.
point, that shouldn't be surprising anybody.
No.
In the same way that they are trying to get civilian people to be like a paramilitary situation to like help ICE,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also upgraded an alignment penalty to include non-citizens. So that's like a specific attack on immigrants. But it like from a bird's eye view, it's about just silencing and using force against all dissenting opinions. And that's what we saw with Al Green getting kicked out of during the speech. And, you know, there's a number of ways that he's accomplishing this, but it's just, yeah, we should all be worried. And you know what? Some of my social media accounts, I'm going to scrub or like make sure that I have super private affiliations. And like that might seem paranoid, but I have experienced like already that, you know, going all the way back to what's that one, the 9/11 one? Uh
Patriot Act.
Patriot, thank you, Joe. You always come up with that one. I never remember what it's called. But yeah, going back to
Yeah.
that, like that was laying out the groundwork for a lot of this type of stuff and about privacy, right? And so as they're looking for who is the enemy of the state and enshrining themselves into like legal reasons to be able to attack people, I mean, we should all be very careful about what our paper trails are online.
Oh, absolutely. And I would just also point out with regards to privacy that ever since they overturned Roe v. Wade, that United States citizens do not have the right to privacy. So, yeah.
Huh.
It wasn't
So,
just about abortion, right? It was about like the ability to have like a private life in your own home, etc.
T-Jack's really quiet. How's it going? How is everybody
Yeah, I wanna
doing
hear-
anyway?
Hi guys.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing? How you doing, Johnny?
Good.
Hey, I was wondering, I was sitting here listening to everybody, and I'm just wondering, is there any way that the federal government of Canada, hopefully it would be Carney, could treat Trump and his regime the way you would treat a narcissistic partner? Like you would tend to kind of try to handle them with kid gloves. You wouldn't react right away. You'd expect the worst to come. And then you'd realize that it would be alternating days between, you know, being treated well and then not. I don't know. I'm just because, as Charlie Angus said today, it's getting a bit much trying to figure out what this guy's going to do next, and so we just have to prepare on the home front more than anything.
It's all about his ego.
Do you guys want? So, one of my I'm in contact with a lot of independent journalists, and one of them just sent me this huge article right now that's apparently been put together by a lot of people that have been looking at what the strategy would be and what their goals are in terms of, like, you know, creating the North American empire. And I was just reading through it a little bit, skimming through it while still listening to you guys about what the most likely plan of action is from everything that we have seen and know so far. And I was wondering if you guys wanted me to share that with you.
Sure.
Are you talking politically, militarily, economically, or all?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it. Like what their plan of action would be for this whole giant North American takeover. But in this article, like before I got to the plan, they were talking about how, you know, our biggest glimmer of hope is that they seem to be doing everything in a reactionary gut-based instinct. They think they're a lot better and smarter than they might be. We don't know. But that could be like our glimmer of hope, is that there's going to be some massive error in their plan at one point that we can take advantage of.
Charlie,
whose plan though? Whose plan? Whose plan?
Trump's. The Trump administration. Trump and his oligarchs. I shouldn't just say Trump because we know that he's not the mastermind here.
Charlie was saying something today that echoed what I've researched over the last century, is that the Canadian militia would meld in a guerrilla warfare with the Canadian populace. It wouldn't be, lines at the border kind of thing. It would be more surreptitious.
That's what I've read too.
And that eventually the U.S. would have to leave because of just massive loss of life.
Well, just thinking the cost alone, like the cost alone would be astronomical. Like something like $1 trillion just to initiate an invasion, let alone try to hold the country.
I just can't believe we're having this conversation, honestly.
Well,
Anyway,
if you look at
I
yeah,
know.
it's a wild conversation.
what were you going to read, Frontline?
So, Trump's most likely plan of action. Phase
Oh,
one, political destabilization and subversion of Greenland. So the likely path for the White House to make is to make increasingly dramatic statements about demanding a referendum amongst the people of Greenland, coupled with a massive social media campaign backed by Elon Musk that promotes a false narrative that Greenlanders want to join the United States and would start to permeate the right-wing and pro-Russia news media. Trump and his staff have already commented that Greenland is crucial to the United States for national security. What they failed to mention is that they want access to rare earth minerals for advanced technologies, even though they actually have said that out loud, basically. Although these minerals exist in the United States, there is an imperialistic belief that Canada and Greenland are untapped regions of wealth that America must control if it wants to dominate the 21st century. Note that an early phone call between Trump and the Danish Prime Minister left the Danes in a panic when they realized his shouting and use of profanities convinced them that he was dead serious about seizing Greenland. So, what is the goal of all of this talk? The goal of seizing Greenland would give Trump's imperialist and technologist cronies access to massive under ice mineral deposits. Note that these could only be accessed if Trump lets climate change continue to take its toll on North Sea ice. Also, in the political uproar of a military annexation, the United States could use the pretext of moving its naval and military assets into defensive position near Greenland for a surprise invasion of Canada. Phase two. Sorry, can you guys mute yourselves while I read this just so that we don't get background noise? Thank you.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Phase two, economic destabilization of Canada. To get a false casus belli, Trump would likely dump massive amounts of money into fringe political groups. One of them is Wexit, a group that wants Western Canada, particularly the oil-rich provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, to split and join the USA. And I do find it weird that, Danielle Smith has been very involved with the Trump administration, and the Wexit movement in Alberta is growing. Groups such as these, under the guidance of the Republican Party via clandestine pathways operated by the CIA, could receive tens of millions of dollars to fund a nationwide information warfare campaign to give the appearance that there is a large majority of Canadians who want to leave and join the USA. Elon Musk would likely dedicate hundreds of millions of dollars to this ridiculous idea. Coupled with massive international social media attacks, the confusion would be enough to give Trump cover that he was rescuing the Canadian people from an extremist, liberal, autocratic government. Dozens of false polls would cover the truth and drown out opposition. Phase three, invade Greenland and then Canada. Less discussed is how Trump's plan reflects the technological imperialist monarchist plans of Elon Musk's neo-reactionary dark enlightenment philosophy. And it's a belief that democracy must be eliminated and that the country run under a corporatist technological dictatorship, and their beliefs that massive quantities of natural resources will be necessary to harness the economy needed for advanced technologies to go to Mars. Traditional oligarchs want to exploit the Earth's resources without restraint and regulation. With Trump, the oligarchs' dreams of economic and cultural domination of the West, removing sanctions against Russia and allowing Musk to automate government with artificial intelligence is all coming true. As part of the political instability campaign, Trump stated in early February that Canada was not viable as a country. Trump explicitly said Canada could not exist without the United States. On February 24th, 2025, Elon Musk tweeted on his social media platform X that Canada is not a real country. Musk is trying to deliberately choose those words and words like them after being privy to the discussions about annexing the country in a rapid invasion. They are almost the very words of justification that Putin used for the invasion of Ukraine. And it's true, it's the same propaganda, but the American version. The consequences of any decision to move to Greenland or Canada are grave for the people of the United States. The political turmoil that would follow would immediately constitute a constitutional crisis, as the Republican Party would likely provide cover and surrender its role as a co-equal branch of government that could reign in such a wild idea. On a global scale, the United States would become a pariah nation. Only Russia and a few hanger-on states in Asia and sub-Saharan Africa would view this as a positive event. Europe would have to make the terrifying decision of cutting off all trade with the United States. Both Canada and Denmark are NATO nations. Both would have no option but to invoke Article 5, calling for the collective defense of their lands. This would mean that the nation that founded NATO would be at war with the other 31 countries in the alliance. Despite America having strategic nuclear weapons and dominant armed forces, the political turmoil would not be limited to the civilian world. Members of the armed forces, 43% who are minorities, primarily people of color, and a few remaining loyal officers and enlisted, would likely view orders to attack our neighbors without aggression as an unlawful order. As many as 60% of the American armed forces would refuse to execute any operation to attack Canada. Military units such as the 10th Mountain Division in Fort Drum, New York, are just a few miles from Ontario. On weekends, they often cross the border to Canada to drink and entertain with their families. And in order to take their weapons and unalive the Canadian Customs and Border Police, city SWAT teams, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and mobilizing Canadian Armed Forces as well as innocent civilians is not an order that any true American soldier would follow. Trump would be made aware of this by his highly underqualified Secretary of Defense. Like the Russian invaders of Ukraine, orders would go out under the guise of training exercises and end with the seizure of Greenland and Canada. However, the other critical units, such as the 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions, would be needed to take Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa, Toronto, Edmonton, Regina, and Vancouver. Their mobilization for Greenland operation would provide cover for a blitz on Canada. The operation concepts would be to dare the Canadians to open fire on them in hopes that the country would just lay back and let it happen. Team Trump's psychophants somehow seem to believe that the Canadians would surrender quickly and quietly. If this all sounds vaguely familiar, it's because it is the exact plan Vladimir Putin had for his invasion of Ukraine. And like the invasion of Ukraine, the Canadian people would likely rise up as a body and fight to the United States would be able to seize a few airports and over a few weeks push heavy forces into Canada, but all this would do is send in a protracted paramilitary counterinsurgency. It is one thing to seize terrain and another to hold it. The American public would be confronted with video images of their sons and daughters being picked off one by one at night by Canadian soldiers, reservists, and citizens who volunteered as paramilitary partisans. Imagine Afghanistan, but where the opponents have some of the most advanced surface-to-air missile systems, shooting American helicopters down with impunity, or IEDs, improvised explosive devices hidden in beaver dams or moose carcasses. The very idea that we are forced to discuss this is fantastical and ridiculous. However, the Trump administration appears to be serious. I could go on, but that gives a very summary version of what some of these experts have put together to say, like, this is how they think they're going to do it. And we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing the psychological campaigns, specifically. He keeps talking about us being the 51st state, like every chance that he gets. But I'm glad that these people realize that it won't be easy. Their military, most of them will not. I'll send you guys. Just, you guys know my personal account. DM me, and I'll send you this article.
There is no way in hell that Canada will lie down. There is
No, that's what I mean. And this is exactly what this article says, is that there's no way it's going to be a very similar situation.
This is where I talked about earlier, where the cost of this would be so astronomical that it's like just the monetary cost is prohibitive.
But they don't care. They have all the money in the world to do it. The oligarchs have so much money. They're the richest people in the world.
They think that. Yeah. But when the American dollar collapses and it no longer holds sway in the world, it changes the equation.
Money.
But what if they introduce crypto and they force crypto onto everybody.
And their money,
Mo-
yeah, and for these billionaires, the money's
I
not
was
all
gonna
locked in just
money,
yet.
money will never be
It only
the
like
hurdle for
forcing
that.
crypto on other nations is only valid if the American dollar was still what held sway. So like, yeah,
You know
if we're
what?
not trading with America, there's no incentive to utilize whatever currency they put forward.
Yeah, but unless we have our
I was
own,
gonna say
Why are we talking about things?
Tiffany.
yes. I was gonna say what they're gonna do. I feel what they're gonna do is they're gonna try and force crypto on the rest of the world. When that doesn't work, what they're gonna do is just like they're doing with Tesla, trying to get their cult members to fund everything. And as they keep running with this rhetoric all over the planet, not just in the U.S. but all over Canada, Europe, the rest of the world, they're going to get more and more cult members, and those cult members are going to be the ones who are going to fund all of this. Like I've already lost friends, walked away from friends because of all of the Trump supporting and stuff, and I couldn't. I'm like, our morals do not align, but I think that you're going to see a lot, and I call it a cult because it is. It's a cult. If you look at a checklist for cults, MAGA is a cult. Be it Maple MAGA, be it America MAGA, be it European MAGA, it doesn't really matter. These are all cult members. We have to remember they they're psychologically incapable of making decisions for themselves at this moment. They they're being used, and they're dangerous to the rest of us who aren't part of the cult. Like that, this is what I don't think they're going to get the world governments to fund this and to support the crypto. They're going to do the same as they did with Donald Trump and his wife's crypto. It's going to be the followers who are going to support all of this, and they're going to do it thinking they're doing the right thing because that's what they believe. Because I hate to use this because it sounds really stupid when you think about the long end game of this. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. They think they're doing the right thing for themselves, for their family, for their country, for the world. They think they're doing the right thing. They're being used because they are so ignorant and uneducated that they don't know any better. And it's sad and it's super scary. And I keep just trying to share information as much as I can. And I'm over on the Book of Face, which is, oh my God, it's like Twatter 2.0. It's disgusting. But I'm over there sharing stuff because I'm like, you guys are all over here on TikTok. There's a ton of people on Instagram. I'm like, nobody's going where the old people are. I'm like, I'm going to sneak over there and start sharing stuff because I'm like, they're the most, I feel like Facebook's almost the most vulnerable community right now because no one's going there. And it's just, I'm seeing people even in Canada, and it's so sick, sharing garbage that they're seeing from the U.S. And, oh my God, I'm like, how are you guys indoctrinated in a cult for a country that's not even yours and will never be yours? Like, I don't understand it. But I firmly believe they're going to get them to fund it. They're going to buy all the crypto with loans, credit cards, everything.
The problem is though is that if we are intertwined with trade and like if we don't have our own refineries, we are forced to trade with them.
Oh, 100%. We need to be self-sufficient in as many, if not
yeah, but
everything.
this whole crypto thing could be coming in the next 6 months to a year. This won't take long, right? The markets are already crashing. Elon Musk is supposed to go to Fort Knox soon and check if the gold is still there. So it's going to be very easy for him to go in there and be like, oh, somebody stole the gold. Look at that. Our dollar is dropping. I'm the savior. Let's do crypto. And then our economy is going to suffer. So they're going to say like, hey, the only way for you guys to survive and trade with us is to get onto crypto. So that's the scary part, is that we don't have the time that we need to actually build out our refineries.
The nice thing is, if you look at what I think it was the CEO of Suncor, don't quote me on that, but one of the CEOs had said that we have almost enough refineries in this country to be self-sustainable. I think we're missing at best one to be completely self-sustaining. We also have more gold than the U.S., ironically. So, you know what? I think as long as we can keep our government from wanting to join this bullshit nonsense, you can't save the public. They're going to make their decisions on their own. But I think Canada could be mostly self-sustaining, and the rest of it, I think we could, in theory, definitely farm out to other countries who will definitely be able to give us what we need. With hydroponics, I think if our government is smart, they can plan this very well. If we get a conservative government, we're fucked. I hate to say it. You might as well just let it go. I hate to say it, and it's a terrible thing to say out loud. It's a horrible thing to say out loud, and it breaks my heart. But if PP ends up getting a majority government, we're cooked.
You know, I agree. Just on that last thought, I agree with that. But also, like, I was just reflecting and like about what you were reading out, Frontline, and part of being able to turn people against the government requires, according to that plan, for it to be, saving them from a liberal wokist government. So maybe they wouldn't actually want PP to be the winner. Maybe they would want, Carney or somebody. I don't know.
If Carney wins in the next election, it shows that, I think a lot of what drives Trump is Trump thinks that, that because over the last couple of years that Canadians are like all these conservatives that are being held down, when it's completely not true, and if Carney wins, I think that's going to take some wind out of his sails. But when you were reading that, what I kept on thinking was, I bet you during any debates in the future with Pierre Poilievre, he's going to bring up gun control and try to make up a case of we need to arm all of Canada just in case the States tries to invade us. I can see it. I can see it.
Can we let Unknown talk first, just because she hasn't said anything yet, and then we'll go to Legend after. Also, just real quick here, Joe, I gave you moderator. I
have power.
Yes. So please, I really need to go to the washroom. So you have mod power while I'm gone for a minute or two here, and then I'll be right back and just catch
the
me
power.
Or actually, I'll just keep my headphones on so I can continue hearing everything. But just know I'm just going to be like 2 minutes, but I'm going to listen.
Everybody break the
Frontline's going. I'm running the show now. I'm kidding. Who was talking?
I think it's really interesting to consider that. But one of the things that I think about is that it's such a delicate balance, right? That when you're dealing with a person who is unstable, can you really predict those kind of things to work perfectly? Can you predict those things to be exactly what the outcome will be? Because we're not dealing with a normal person, right? So do I think that Pierre is going to be like, oh, we need to save our guns and we all need to arm ourselves? I don't know, because does that work in Canada? And I don't think it does. So I really think it's up in the air. I think it depends on how extreme the South gets.
I'd say it's less of a question of, is it an extreme of the South that we need to concern ourselves about, or also how susceptible are our people to propaganda? I mean, let's not forget, we had a convoy of people that came to Ottawa. That was a good way of testing out if propaganda was able to infect a lot of groups up here in Canada. That's something we can't forget.
It was
And I was going to say, as an Albertan, I can definitely say that, and hence why I said I've had several friendships like blow up recently. There are a lot of people who it's scary how many of them are believing all the BS that is being shared, like the misinformation, the disinformation. They're believing the misinformation about Carney and the fact that we as the Liberal Party is deciding for the country who the PM is going to be, and it's ridiculous, and people genuinely are believing this. Forcefully arguing about this.
That's how Danielle Smith got into power.
Yeah, but she's special.
Right.
She's special.
Right.
She is, but not in the way they think.
It's how John Turner got in power, but that doesn't count because,
No, it
he was
doesn't.
conservative.
Exactly. Rules for thee, but not for me. But genuinely, only because I've been arguing these things. Like, I literally am now being basically almost downright sassy and mean, and like, hey, just for an FYI for Mabel Mega, since you guys don't know how government works, here's. But yeah,
Yeah,
we are totally susceptible.
I was on a live recently, and somebody who was a conservative follower was talking about how the liberals are scrubbing the internet of information as we speak, and I was just like, it was such a wild thing to be talking about, you know. So, like, I don't know what the propaganda train they are on, but like, I'm sure that's not the only person who's heard whatever that story is.
Yeah.
You can investigate
I
it
just
rather
wanna.
easily if you go take a look at some of them in regards to some of the media, in regards to Rebel News, everything else. But yeah, it's susceptible.
I want to let Legend speak, and then I want to listen
Mhm.
to Cat Burrito because they haven't gotten a chance to speak in a little while.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I was just gonna say there's a couple of things interesting, like when he's talking about taking Greenland, right? The interesting thing is about Greenland, it is actually part of the North American continent. It's an island, but it's actually part of the North American plate, and so I wonder if that's got something to do with it too. Also, like when it comes to Carney, I would talk to a person today or yesterday, and he was up there telling me how if Carney gets in, he's going to be giving Canada to the states, and he's going to bend to Trump and everything, which I really don't think that's going to happen. And they go on like, well, he just moved his office down to the states. He's done this, he's done that. He's got in. He's renounced his British and Irish citizenship. He's basically done everything right. I would probably normally vote NDP, but I'm really looking towards voting for Carney because like I said, he seems to be a fairly level-headed guy. And But yeah, like I said, those are the two things. The other thing is, I was just wondering, like I've got from work, I've got profit sharing, and it's supposed to be investments, but I've been checking on it, and it's updated daily, and it's dropped very little, and then gone up a bit. So I guess, hopefully, I'm in. That's my retirement. I hope I'm in something that's less volatile as far as
Also, Legend, what I
stuff.
wanted
I
to
was
say
supposed
to
to be in
that,
something, but I did what
sorry, you
go
keep
ahead.
cutting in and out, so I think you're done speaking when you're not. I'm so sorry. What
Okay.
I wanted to say though is at the end of the day, though, we need to vote strategically. So look at your riding, understand your riding, go to smartvoting.ca or do your own research, whatever you feel more comfortable with. But if the NDP, because you said you usually vote NDP, right? If the NDP has more of a chance in your riding, continue to vote NDP. If the Liberals have more
Yeah.
chance in your riding, then vote Liberal. Because right now it's just about making sure that we don't waste our vote.
And look more towards getting a minority government if a certain person does get in there. Yes. But the one last thing I wanted to say was, Tiffany, just out of curiosity, what do you consider old people? I don't know if she heard me or not. I'm
I don't think so.
65. I'm 65, so I guess I am a bit of an old person.
And there
I
goes my
mean,
back.
there's the idea that like old 55 plus hang out on Facebook a lot more than they do on other social media platforms because they're not as comfortable with other social media platforms. Like my dad is 67 and he's on Facebook 24/7. He will not get TikTok, but he's on Facebook all the time.
Well,
But
I'm on.
my dad's fighting for the right side of history on Facebook, so I gotta love him for that. He's posting stuff all day, every day, and going off on people on there, so it's kind of cute.
I'm on Facebook too, but like I said, it's funny at work. I work with a lot of younger people in the store I work with, and they're always telling me, "Oh yeah, you're on TikTok. You're hanging around with all those teenagers and all those teenage girls and everything." I said, I talk to more adults on TikTok than I do on than I think there are a lot. There are more. There's a lot more adults and older. people on here than there are teenage girls. I don't know where they get that from.
TikTok evolved.
Anyway, I got to get out of here. Thanks for letting me up here. And
Take care.
Thanks for being here.
hey, no problem. I've been watching you quite a bit. I kind of got you confused with one time. There's another one is Beaver, and I got into that, and it was totally a different environment than here. So, okay, well, have a good night. Thanks for letting me in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cat Burrito, we haven't heard from you yet. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I just came from this Maple Maga live, and yeah, it was a very, how should I say this, eye-opening experience. Yeah, I mean, some people, they're just so mentally like imprinted that like you cannot reason with them. It's not part of the protocol.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, like. I mean, I was listening on this live before. I think like people are a lot more rational here, and that's great.
Yeah.
Most people here are pretty like liberal leaning, which I suppose I am too. I have to admit, before this, I was kind of on the whole, oh, Trudeau's done a bad job. It's time for a change kind of train. But I think like this whole situation, this new conflict with the U.S. really showed like who actually cares about the country and who is just kind of going through the motions and trying to get votes. Yeah. Okay. With that being said, I have a hot take that I don't even know if I agree with.
Go
But
for it. We're all very non-judgmental and
okay,
go
here we
for
go.
it.
I think Canada
Please
should.
share.
Yeah, I genuinely kind of think Canada should have a nuclear arsenal.
We
I was
actually
thinking the
talked
same
about
thing.
that today already
Oh, really?
on this live. Yeah,
Okay.
you weren't
Wow.
the first one to say it. It's not a hot take.
Okay,
Panda
that's
said it
amazing.
earlier.
Yeah.
Because I
Well,
think I
you
posted
know,
this once on Reddit, and people were like, no,
yeah.
non-proliferation.
Up until 1968,
Yeah.
did have nukes, but they were American nukes on
1984.
was it 84, 84, 86, something like that.
Yeah, it was
We had
84.
nukes on our land, but we gave them back.
Right.
But
It would
Yeah,
be nice if no one had them. That would be ideal,
that's
but
true.
yeah,
that's
We're
not the
getting there.
world we live in.
The U.S.
Yeah.
didn't have so many they could destroy the world.
Someone
That's
said
true.
pointed where.
Yeah, I think like you guys were talking about, back in the 1980s when we decided to give up nukes. Like that was the time when like the Cold War was drawing to a close, and then we're getting into this era of the so-called Pax Americana, where globalization was happening. It was a good time. People were trading more with each other. Right now, we're seeing like an unwind of that. So I don't know. I think for Canada's sake, I think we're responsible enough to handle them, right? And then in the face of threats in the north and into the south, and
I mean, at the end of the
whoever
day,
else.
having them is the only purpose of having them is to have them, because the second
Right.
that we use them, it's over for everyone.
Exactly.
well,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a deterrent. But to me, I
You
think like
know,
if we're going to take the annexation threat seriously, it might be the most cost-effective deterrent.
Oof.
yeah.
Can I kind of share a hot take? And this one is gonna be a little bit odd. I don't know how effective nukes are as a deterrent anymore, given the fact that a lot of the fascist dictatorship governments taking over are in the back end run by evangelical Christians who essentially want to bring the second coming of Sky Daddy's kid.
I see that smirk over there.
Sorry, I have to do it because every time, but honestly, so my
Yeah,
hot
that
take
is-
is that I don't know how much of a deterrent they are, considering their whole purpose behind the scenes, or their whole thinking, is that they want to have the second coming of, and yes, and that's not to be offensive to anybody who's Christian in the comments. I'm sorry if it is.
Yeah.
It's more to
But you're not
egg
speaking
on
about
those who,
Christians. You're speaking about evangelicals. It's
yeah,
different.
a specific sect of Christians. But yeah, that's my hot take. I don't know how much of a deterrent they are at the moment, given the fact that their whole goal seems to be to bring forward the second coming. Is it really a deterrent?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know
Which is
what?
a scary thought. I don't want to bring it
Hold
forward
on.
because it's
What?
like gonna
Let's
give
talk
out
one at a
causes
time.
nightmares. But yeah,
Um,
there's my hot take.
I mean, I'm just gonna speak parallel to that. That I think one of the biggest threats we have is the disinformation. You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing that is dividing, is able to divide us so rapidly. And also, like, this is what they had to say about the foreign interference reports. Like, everybody that did bother to get their security clearance and read it, you know, that we have really giant, credible threats coming from disinformation, and that's the way that wars are fought nowadays. You
It
know,
is the
via
biggest threat.
yeah.
You know
So
what's
how do we
crazy?
counteract that? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. You know what's crazy is I did that video on the Commonwealth as it being like, it was it's like that's kind of a dream, really. You know, like all the common. I know many Commonwealth countries would support us and do support us, but it would be a neat thing for us to, you know, pursue. Like, I would love to see. It would be amazing if like Carney held a Commonwealth conference in Ottawa. Like because like the Americans that commented on that video, they were freaking out at the thought that there's something bigger than them. They were absolutely going nuts in my comment section about that.
I think that's the thing. And Tiffany, to your point, how do we combat that? And I think that it is understanding the basics of that human psychology. They're a cult.
Yeah.
They're a
Yeah,
cult. And
if
we
you,
have to.
Calvin,
yes, hi,
welcome.
hi guys. Thank you. I did a step-by-step videos and process of how this happened, why it happened, and how it is happening. And once you understand, watch my videos of how it's happening and what it's based on, it'll give you a better understanding how to counteract it. It's all based on psychology and narcissistic behavior and trauma. So, with that being said, how do we counteract it? There's people that are so they're so indoctrinated. We're not going to get through to them. And the more we throw facts at them, the more they're going to dig in their heels, and they're not going to believe us whatsoever. So, for those people specifically, you have to shame them and call them Russian assets, call them Trump assets. So you have to shame them in such a way that they're betraying their country. Shame
Like
them in such a way they're betraying their country. That's
you,
the only way we can target those individuals. But
yeah,
there are those that aren't fully indoctrinated yet. And the way you approach those people is you have to be soft with them. You
yeah,
can't hit them with facts because as
yeah.
soon as you do, you're going to lose them. So you have to establish trust. You have to listen to their concerns, their opinions, the way they see the world, and their truth is just as important and valid as yours, no matter how misguided theirs are. So there are two different tactics for two different parties in here. Regarding Mark Carney, I think he is the right guy for the right guy at the time. We just have all of us have a responsibility in here, whether if we're Bloc Quebecois, if we're American. I see some Americans on here. There's a lot of good, decent Americans out in the states, and I have so many friends from there. And we have Green Party and the NDP. We all have to work together to try to bolster Mark Carney because Mark Carney has the temperament, the intellect, and the know-how to get us and navigate through this mess. He
Respectfully,
did.
no.
He
I'm
did.
not. I don't think I'm voting for Carney. I'm sorry.
Oh, hold on. The thing is, and that's your right to do that. The thing is, he did the exact right thing at his speech. He called out Pierre Poilievre and his willingness to sell this country out to the United States, not to the United States, to Donald Trump, because I can't say the United States is there's good, decent people there that don't support Trump. And
It's not.
so we're going to hopefully, if he keeps this rhetoric up against Pierre Poilievre, hopefully we are going to see some conservatives distance themselves from Pierre Poilievre just on that notion right there that he's a traitor to our country.
Yeah.
With the logistics of them invading us and all that stuff, there are actually people trying to help us in the United States. Democrats and good, decent people. They're trying to introduce legislation to prevent Donald Trump from doing this. So the American people have, I think, less than 60 days to regain control of their government. When President Trump was inaugurated, he signed a whole bunch of executive orders. One of them was the Emergency Border Control Act or something like that. And after 60 days, he gets a report. Based on that report, he can enact that law. And once he does, he can arrest anybody, any protest in the United States, and it'll be over for them. So their time is ticking. Our time is extended now that Mark Carney's in here. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh, basically we have to look at this election like this. Yes, I'm an NDP. I don't want to vote for Mark, but do I want my sovereignty? Do I want my freedom for my children? And that's how you have to look at this election. Do I want to be free? Do I want my children to be free
Calvin,
and
can
safe?
can I can
Oh, yes, I'm
I
done. I'm done. Go ahead.
you know, I think what we need to do is understand the moment, and I appreciate you talking about how to talk to people and combat the disinformation. This is really important. One of the tactics that I try and use is, and I see a lot on TikTok that like a quote unquote op comes up somewhere, and people want to explain why they're wrong and they want to get their opinion in instead of asking questions. And even I'm inclined to do that. Like I'm no saint for sure. But I find it's more effective if we can ask people questions and allow them to walk their own arguments back until they find the holes in their own thinking, right? Because that hopefully
Exactly.
plants a seed.
And
As far as
that's a perfectly good tactic because you're fostering critical thinking, which is what all of this trauma and misinformation and gaslighting has done. It has decreased the critical thinking in a lot of our population.
right, and offering people resources as well. People are talking about smartvote.ca and already Frontline, you brought that up. And like in terms of who to vote for, I think what we have to do is really understand the moment, and that's hard to do. I don't have all the answers, so I'd say that I'm somewhat undecided, but I'm not convinced that the most important not the no, it's not about the most important thing. I'm not convinced that the best path forward is necessarily only about stopping Trump, right? Because there's so much political rhetoric and hyperbolic stuff happening about that right now, and it's also making all of us emotional, and like as we know, our critical thinking skills all suffer the more emotional we are, right? So I mean, I think I'm gonna take a step back and try and discern what exactly I think the threat is and think about how I think the best path forward is. But I don't know if I can like entirely just only make my vote about putting Carney to be the best battler of Trump, because the liberals don't completely align with my values. I'm also an NDP voter, and if I believe that Canada can go forward and be strong, I think there's a lot of different ways we can achieve that. And I want to give power to the party that I think most aligns also what my point of view is. And there's a few ways that like voting for them, whether or not they can be PM, can help them. Like the what's it called? The vote per diem. It's not called the per diem, but anyway, there's financial support that comes to them for voting for them. Also, like we could have a lot of one of the ways Canada is beautiful that we have minority governments. Somebody said on another live recently, like maybe of like least worst PP government would be a minority PP government of which they're basically lame duck, right? So there's like that could happen. There
Yeah.
could be a minority liberal government with like a lot of strength from the rest of the left. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and I'm not
Yeah.
convinced that I should just vote for Carney because I think that he's going to battle Trump the best.
I
Because
just
I
want
think,
to add to that.
sorry, I'm
Go ahead.
rambling. Go ahead.
So the reason why we can't comprehend this or understand, and we want to lay back and look at what's going on, is because this situation has never happened on this side of the pond. This is a very sad reality in the EU. This is their reality of day-to-day life because they have been riddled with wars throughout the centuries. So because we have been sheltered here in North America and have had friends like the United States and Mexico, we have never had to face that reality, and it's a harsh reality to accept. Now, Mark Carney, he's not going to battle for tit for that. Mark Carney is a very intellectual chess player. He will navigate this finessely, and he will get things from Trump that Trump thinks he's getting a benefit from. Like he's going to basically give Trump something, and Trump's going to say, "Oh, it's a big win," but Carney's thinking 5, 6 moves ahead, and Carney's actually getting what he wants. And he's going to be able to successfully navigate the the global politics, and make the right chess moves with our allies and with our enemies to make it. Because essentially, we have to convince the enemies like Russia and China and all them that it is their best interest to keep Canada sovereign, and he would be able to best demonstrate that.
I'll just say
And
one other thing and then I promise I'll mute up. But like, yes, I see your point of view and I don't think you're entirely wrong. I agree with some of it. But also, Mark Carney or the Liberals aren't going to prioritize workers' rights. They aren't going to put forward the really great socialized programs that the NDP has been able to offer, or at least not to the same effect. The Liberals have classically, and it looks like they will continue to be about the middle class and about supporting small businesses. And as the overall economic plan for Canada, I don't know if that's the best thing. And so I'm not willing to abandon all of those ideas just to respond to Trump.
I,
That's all I'm saying.
no, and I respect
I
that,
hear you,
but
TT.
we have to start thinking along the lines about there isn't going to be any workers' rights. There isn't going to be any health care. There isn't going to be any of these social nets if Pierre Poilievre comes in and hands
Exactly.
over control to Donald Trump.
Well, is that not hand
That's the
over?
harsh reality.
It's
I would say that I don't care whose seat wins so long as it's not conservative. So I think that if we look at how Harper got in with his majority the last time, it was because we were all too divided, right?
yeah.
We were like, what was it, like 30%, 30%, and they had like a 33%.
You know, like
So
if conservatives get in, they want to get rid of unions. They don't. They want to get rid of
exactly.
collective bargaining. They want to get rid of everything. Liberals are for all those things, and if you know, I hate it when NDP people think that. I'm sorry, but when they think that it was just the NDP that gave us all these good things that we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yep.
And that's exactly what the United States did. They ran on that. Less government,
No,
spending and stuff
that's
like that.
guys. The track
And when
record of
they
the NDP is very strong. Like the evidence is there. Look at the voting records. Look at the proposals. Watch Question Period. I watched Question Period religiously at the beginning of the pandemic. I saw exactly how the NDP made sure the CERB happened. This is not a fiction. And
Yeah, but we're
and you know
talking
what?
about
I think
25 votes.
I think we gotta go
I
back
think
to
that
what
what we're debating is how strong the conservatives are, and they're declining. So so like it's
don't
fine.
let them
Like I
fool you.
respect. Yes, they are in the polls.
They're still at 39.
The polls, hold on. The polls are not everything. They are not the Bible. They are not
No,
God. They're not
they're
nothing.
not.
Kamala was also winning in the polls down south.
Yes.
I
And she
totally
didn't
agree with
win.
you, but your guys' belief of how strong the conservatives are right now is also based on that. So I don't know if we agree on how serious of a threat PP is, and I think that there's other ways to do it. And so I respect you guys. If you guys are ABC, fine, that's fine.
Yeah,
But
oh yeah,
my
definitely.
perspective is also well thought out and logical.
I
So.
personally, I haven't looked at any of the polls. I'm basing this on my personal perspective of what is happening on the island I live in. It was all liberal. Now we have a cult of conservatives in Maple Maca. That is what I'm basing this on. PP is very dangerous, and this movement is very
I know that,
dangerous.
and I wish you'd stop explaining it to me like I don't get that.
Oh,
Because
sorry.
I'm having respect for the opposing points of view here, but I don't feel that you guys are hearing what I'm saying, or you're talking to me like I don't get what PP's about. I do.
No,
I don't
Hey,
support him.
hold on.
I apologize if you
Like,
feel that way.
Sorry,
I'm
I guess I'm feeling emotional, but like I don't know, my perspective here, like it doesn't, it feels like everyone thinks that I'm out to lunch or something, and I think
No,
my
you're not.
perspective is just as
we're just
valid.
Your
we're
perspective
not.
is very valid and important, my dear. And it's I listen to you, and I take exactly you have hope, and I respect that, and I love that, and I wish I had your hope. I really do. And I wish I had your perspective on the decency of these people, but I don't. I wish I had your soul right now.
And I was gonna
Anyway, I'm
like at the
sorry.
end of the day, we can disagree and still be friends, right? I've even
Right,
been able
yeah.
to talk to conservatives that I disagree with and still have a civil conversation. I just wanted to kind of chime in here a little bit. I've been an NDP voter for the past decade of my life. I might still vote NDP this time around, just strategically because that's the way that my riding might go. And I wanted to make it very clear that when people talk about strategic voting, it doesn't mean vote for liberals. It just means vote for whatever party can take
Yeah.
the seats away from a conservative. Right? There are some ridings in Canada where Greens actually do really well. They're very little, right? They're very
Totally.
small, but
I'm in Quebec.
it's
Bloc is a factor, like totally.
so.
It's funny.
To
I
be
was
clear,
gonna ask a quick.
sorry guys, can I finish? Can I finish, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then everybody can have a chance. I don't want us to talk over each other. As an NDP voter, I love what the party stands for. I've always wanted to give them seats, and for all these other elections that we've been through, I never had this like daunting fear that if the conservatives potentially get in, that it's all over, because we were never in this situation before, right? And at the end of the day, though, I'm gonna be this. This might piss off some people, so I'm gonna give a trigger warning. I love the party. I am not liking their messaging right now, and I did not like their messaging when they chose to do a non-confidence vote to try to get Trudeau out. When they saw how dangerous the situation that we are in. Like right now is the time for them to come together, and they're going head to head when the NDP is not doing good in the polls. And so the best idea for them would be to actually partner with the Liberals to get behind strategic voting, because if we strategically vote, the NDPs actually get more seats than what's predicted.
Can
So
I
it's
add to
actually
that?
a good thing
Oh,
for them.
I
Hold
can
on.
totally get behind your point of view, and it's also the
So,
way a lot of my family feels.
I
so
agree, and
the
that's why I was going to ask a question.
So
Wait,
sorry. No, I interrupted. That
Frontline
was
had
my
to
bad.
finish.
But so please
Well,
finish. That was my no. But she wasn't done. My fault. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute and not come off mute. Sorry.
it's okay.
I
Tiffany's got a burning question. Let's go.
I I do because I have a brand new riding. I am now in a brand new riding in Alberta, and I don't know what the fuck to do because I literally have like no fucking data to go on. Pardon my French for anybody who's
Yeah.
offended by my swearing, but like
Yeah.
that's why
There's
my burning question because I'm like I like the riding I was in previous to this has been split now. It was a stronghold conservative, and don't get me wrong, the person who holds this riding, as much as I loathe the Conservative Party, he's more liberal-minded than, let's say, the party that he's part of. I get why he picked the party he picked because he would never have gotten voted in if he didn't. But I'm like, I don't know what to do now, given the fact I have no data to go on. I have no idea.
okay. So first of all, there's people working on it.
Okay, good.
JB is working on all the new writings. Number one. Number two, when that happens, you have to look at the area because the area didn't change. It used to be a different riding before. So you have to look at what that riding was before. And usually the way that it goes in Canada, I know this very well, if a riding was not already predominantly NDP and they didn't have a lot of NDP support in the past. Sorry, can I get you to mute? Everybody's very loud in my ears right now. Can I get everybody to mute? Thank you. Okay, so basically, if you were in a riding that was primarily conservative, like if your new riding is made up of the area of an old riding or two new old ridings or two old ridings, right? If they were mostly conservative, then usually, and this is just historically speaking, it could change. That's why we still need to keep an eye out. That's why people are working on it. But usually it goes liberal if there's a chance at an opposition there. Usually the NDP ridings have been NDP ridings for a while, and you would see that in their past voting history. So you have to look at your new riding. Where did that come from? What area was it in before? What riding was that before? And look how people voted in that area before, even if that's not the current riding that you're in right now, if that makes sense. Does that kind of make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's crazy
Okay.
is
Yes, it
I
does.
just
It
voted
totally makes sense.
NDP for the first time ever in our Ontario election because we didn't in my area there was no Liberal candidate, so I ended up voting NDP for the first time ever.
Yeah. I just want to finish my thought from earlier, just because I got a little sidetracked there. What I wanted to say, though, about the NDP is that the leader and the communications team let me down. And I've been a strong NDP supporter for a really long time. But when that non-confidence vote came in, my favorite NDP, I'm going to call him leader because I love him, but Charlie Angus, right? Charlie Angus did not participate in that non-confidence vote, and he advised the NDP not to do it because he's like, this is not the time for us to be divided. We are under massive threat. And it seems like the NDP leader wanted more, he put party over people. He put party over Canadians because right now we have to be united and strong together. And that let a lot of people that are NDP supporters, it let them down. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm still going to vote strategically. Most likely that's still going to be NDP. That's usually the way that my riding goes. And I support the party. I support the party's values, but I'm not happy with the leadership and the marketing and the messaging because they came out even a couple of days ago to attack Mark Carney and put out repeat the same conservative propaganda that they did about the whole Brooksfield thing, which is BS. He signed a piece of paper that just said, I will be okay with whatever the board of directors want to do. And then he resigned. And then 2 weeks later, they had a vote. The board of directors decided to move part of that company to New York, which is not a big deal. It's something that happens in the business world all the time. But the NDP had the same messaging as the Conservatives, and it was weird and it felt like not right because they're supposed to be the party of love, compassion, unity. And if they work together, and if they like, also when Elizabeth May talked about the coalition and she talked about the Greens, Liberals, and NDP coming together, the NDP did not want to get on board, which I'm finding very, very strange, because that's not the party that I've been voting for the last 10 years. And so, like, I don't understand what's going on with the leadership and the messaging right now, because they are the best party, right? They did pull the Liberals in the way of dental care and all these other things that I love them for. But I don't know what's going on right now, that something seems off. And
Can I
and that
respond?
makes me unhappy.
Can I
You know what?
respond to that?
Saying that is
Right after Johnny's done talking.
Okay.
sorry. So you saying that, like, it makes me think that if Polyev had a minority government, that Jagmeet Singh, if he was like, if they were the opposition, that he would appease and go along with Polyev, just to stay, just for, to stay in that position. Like, I don't know. I don't. I really just. I like Jagmeet before, but I don't. I don't know anymore. I don't know.
There has to be some kind of strategy behind
Hold
it.
on,
Like,
hold on. I want to be fair to the order. TT.
Thanks for saying that. And again, I got like 4 hours sleep before my crazy long shift today, so I'm probably touchy. So I apologize for getting my back up. And I just want to say that I appreciate, and I don't mean disrespect, Calvin, but I think where I was having a difficult time listening to your perspective, which is different than the way because Frontline put forward her opinion about what she criticizes about the party. And what I was hearing from you, Calvin, was everybody needs to think the way I'm thinking. And if you don't, it's because you don't understand. And so that's where I got touchy. But I took it personally, and it wasn't personal, but just Frontline, I appreciate if for anybody, if people want to put forward arguments about why the NDP isn't the best path forward, for me anyway, it's easiest to listen to if you put it forward as your own point of view, not something that I need to get on board with or assume, if that makes sense. So thank you for explaining that in that way, Frontline. That was easier for me to absorb, and I'm going to think about your perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, what I would like to see the most is, like, I don't have a party favorite. Like, I'm not somebody who's like loyal to a certain party. I'm only loyal to what I think is best. And what I think is best right now is that all of the parties come together and work together. Like, we need a coalition between the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals. That's what I think would be the best. Because that way we can all be represented, because that's what ends up happening to the progressives in Canada. We end up getting so split up, and we split the votes. And then when we have a conservative government, it actually represents a much smaller percentage of people that live in this country. And that's so not fair. It's just not fair to the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's like we have 60% of the people that vote for progressive parties, but because the vote is split, or even 65%, right? And then
I'd
the
say more than
conservatives get to
70.
now dedicate what happens to our country because 35% of voters went conservative. Like, it's not fair to us.
Yeah.
I
I'd
agree.
say more
That's
than
why I
my
said
turn
minority
now?
government.
Huh? Is it my turn now?
Yeah, go ahead,
Who's in the
Calvin.
bath?
Okay.
Somebody's in the bath. Like, it just.
That's me. I'm in the hot tub. Sorry
I
about
knew
that.
it. I could hear the splish splash. You'd take
Yeah.
it in bath.
I wholeheartedly apologize. Like, I don't have that ability to put things delicately. I'm a very blunt, straight shooter, and I apologize. I really don't have that ability to dance around
No,
things.
you're fine. Just don't make your opinion be something that I have to agree with. Is
No,
all.
no, I
But
know.
but you're fine. Like, I know you
That's the
didn't mean anything.
drawback of me. That's the drawback of myself. And to build Frontline's comment, I think the NDP leaders, they all had their security clearance and they saw the report. And Jagmeet Singh refused to do a non-confidence vote. until after I don't know what there's a couple of days there, a week or something like that. I guarantee you, strategically, them two got together with all their national security advisors on the best way to go forward on this. And unfortunately, the end result was Justin being ousted out, and Jagmeet had to play the part. I'm just assuming. And now with the messaging going after Carney, maybe are they trying to take away firepower from the conservatives? Maybe, I don't know. I know that these guys are smart. They have advisors, they have national security advisors, they have strategic planners, and I trust them. I trust Jagmeet Singh and Mark Carney more than I wouldn't trust PP with my school lunch, man. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah,
But
I
these two
agree.
guys, I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so maybe I don't know enough about new developments on the Brookfield thing, but is there nothing to be criticized there? Or is it emblematic at all of how a business mentality prioritizes business strategies and business people's needs, right? Like that's kind of my question about it. I'm not on board with like any kind of conspiratorial, rhetoric about it, but I do wonder if that's a legitimate point or not.
It's I don't you know what I've these are like Mark Carney, the made the head of the Bank of Canada, the head of England's bank. Like you have video of like Harper and video of Polyev, like giving accolades to Carney, and you don't get those positions by being a shyster. You know, he's you know he's a great Canadian, great man. He has integrity, and these Polyev and conservatives, and sadly even the NDP are trying to make him out like he could have a shady side to him, and it's the furthest from the truth.
Well, what I
Right.
heard about Brookfield
Playbook
was
that
that
they
he
played is that.
reduced.
Hold on. I want to let Pumpkin Spice talk because I know that she's been wanting to say
Totally, I've been
something for a
talking
really
so
long
much.
time. No, that's totally okay. And then just really quickly, central banking versus commercial banking, very, very, very different. Also, Mark Carney actually has had such good like climate policies with the businesses that he works with that businesses have quit working with him because they didn't want to listen to his climate policies, which I actually find kind of cool. Pumpkin, take it ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I've been trying to get in to make a comment about the politics in Quebec because it is different than the rest of Canada. And I feel like TT understands this with me and might have a similar opinion, but maybe not. Which is that, like, I don't ever want to have a bloc as the person representing me because they never represent my personal interests. I don't know if that feels that way for you, but like typically, I'm assuming that in your writing, if it doesn't go in the direction that you want it to go, or in liberal, etc., it usually goes block, right?
Yeah, it's well, here in the city, there is a past history of NDP being strong, but those days have long since been over. So yeah, it's most likely going to be liberal for me.
Because we've had like NDP here in my writing for like twice in a row. Actually, I think 3 times in a row, and I voted for them 2 of those times. And unfortunately, the last time it was a liberal who took the writing. But it's looking like it's going to go either liberal or bloc. But the thing is, I might not be living at this address when the election happens, and the address that I will be living at is most certainly going to go block. I cannot be an ABC voter and vote block because I don't want them representing me because I know that they don't represent mine or the Indigenous interests in the riding that I'm going to be in. So for me, I could vote for whoever I want to because I know that my vote is either going to count as like not being taken away from the bloc anyway, so the bloc is likely to win, or I could vote Liberal or NDP and maybe boost their numbers. But
yeah, it's tricky.
It's tricky,
That's
right?
tricky.
Because like I know that the bloc is going to win if we split the vote, because there's always that 30%.
I was
Yeah,
just
and
I was
I
on
don't
a
know too much about Quebec, so
I was on a live
So, I
yesterday.
mean, I just wanted to bring that up because everybody around us is talking about, oh, yeah, it's definitely going to go conservative, but very unlikely in Quebec does it go conservative. There's not a lot of
Yeah,
ridings where conservatives have support here.
right. It's less likely to go conservative in my writing than it is to go NDP or liberal.
Yeah,
Um,
in the same way
yeah.
here.
I
I want
was
to
on
remind
a
everybody.
live yesterday with a very intelligent man. He's a good researcher. So what he did during our live, he researched everything about the GDP and the economy of the United States. The United States really has no choice now because their American dollar is really was backed by reputation. The American dollar is not backed by anything right now. So they need resources to back their dollar. So regardless if PP comes in and hands over Canada to Donald Trump, or if Mark Carney comes in, then he's going to find some other way to come in and annex us because the resources up in the Arctic and the uranium in Nova Scotia, that's what they need to back their currency. Because essentially, the United States has outspent their their currency or whatever they
Yeah.
call it, and he explains it to the detail where the U.S. was issuing debt bonds, and then the U.S. was rebuying back their bonds. So essentially, the U.S. is broke right now. So it's
Oh,
very concerning.
Frontline. Earlier, was it you that said something about Fort Knox or something like?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? When you did mention that, it reminded me. I remember like in the early '90s. It's so funny. I remember this. They had it on the news where there was a big special where they actually went to Fort Knox and they opened up the doors and like broke the seal, and it hadn't that seal hadn't been broken in like 20 years, and they showed like the gold in it because like so, at that time I forget what was going on in the world, but at that time everybody was like, so they didn't believe that the gold was there in Fort Knox. And always remember that, seeing that as a young teenager.
Do we think
That's
that's what
awesome.
they saw when why they're talking about it?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
That's
they're
Yeah,
weird.
it
talking
could have
about
been
it
like the
because
moon landing.
it's a good plan for them to go in there and say, "Oh, gold is missing, and now we have
Yes.
to back our dollar with crypto." That's just
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is like that's the thing. This is not new. That's why when I saw it, I knew what was happening because the tech oligarchs, like the dark mega crowd, the PayPal mafia, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, that was taught by Curtis Yarvin, and all those guys have had this plan for a long time. They've been investing in crypto and pushing crypto for a long time, and this was part of their butterfly revolution that Curtis Yarvin wrote for how to do a government takeover and
Totally.
create
And
these
Doge.
freedom cities, right? Like their whole thing is to make praxis a reality, to make their own oligarch run, create their own laws, have their own surveillance, drive out anybody who they don't like and who they don't agree with, and basically enslave the rest of the American public to do whatever work needs to get done for free.
Mm.
I mean, we definitely have an existential threat on our hands, of which, like, I think you said this earlier, Frontline, but like, we don't know the path forward, and that's kind of what I was like alluding to before, is that I think we have to take it as it comes. And a lot of it is well thought out and has been underway for a while. And a lot of it is very unexpected. And we don't know where it's going to go next, including like all of our leaders all across the country. So, how much of a threat that is and weighs into when we decide to have an election, which we don't even know that. Like, all of these things need to be considered going forward.
I think we're going to have an early election. if I was the strategist right now, I would say call for an early election. I wouldn't want it to take too long because the smear campaign is already well on its way. There's thousands of bots that are being released into Canadian social media. There's lies, there's fake AI images. I mean, we're already seeing it, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. So I would, as a politician, would want to ride the wave of excitement and not let that spirit campaign get to me. Because if you think about it, if we have an election in October, what happens during the summertime? Because most people are not like us. Most people watch the news here and there. They make up their own ideals and opinions when it comes to politics. But most of the time, they don't think about it. They don't spend as much time thinking about it like we do.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is if we let the summer months go by, people are going to go out, they're going to have fun, they're going to party, they're going to enjoy their life, and they're going to forget all about it. And then when it comes down to elections, there is going to be such a surge of propaganda and smear campaigns that they might make the wrong decision because they've been disconnected from what's been happening. Right? So there's the benefit of seeing all the horrible stuff that's going to happen in the United States and then them being motivated by that. But then there's also the disadvantage of summertime, having fun, and then you get to the fall and people just have been disengaged because they spent all summer going out, having fun, going hiking, whatever, and forgetting all about politics. So it's like people are more motivated to vote now before summer really gets here. And there won't be as much time for a smear campaign to completely ruin his reputation from all the lies that we're going to see from the Conservatives. So that's just my 2 cents. Like, that would be my strategy if I was going into this. So I think they're probably going to go with that and call for an early election.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one.
I kind of
Me too.
end of April.
I'm hoping it's at least in May, then that way we can avoid a blizzard here in Manitoba.
It's
I
scary
do
right
know.
now to call an election with everything going on, but strategically it would be. You make totally 100% sense. And they, like I said, they got strategists and intel and national security advisors, so they're probably listening to them, and they're probably telling them the same thing because there are like rumors. Oh, there's going to be an election called anytime now, and so yeah, you are kind of bang on. I think you're bang on that one.
I think one of the biggest things we also have to think about is Pierre probably has a very massive fear of getting a minority government. For not just the fact that he's not going to be able to pass much as a minority government, but there's been a threat before, and I'm sure he remembers it because he was there in government at the time where the Harper government almost got toppled and replaced with a coalition government. And if he gets a minority government right now, this could be the opportune time for a coalition government to form this time, and then the country would see an actual, real coalition government.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why they've been so busy spamming like coalition bad, coalition undemocratic, because they fear this might occur.
I think that if Polyev got a minority government, he he wouldn't last more than a month. I
6
don't
months.
think.
6 months. He will
You
last
think?
6 months.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
He'll
That's
last 6
six
months, but
months
at
too
the
long.
but I think it's like, at the end, this is the big thing. At the end of the 6 months doesn't necessarily mean the government gets dissolved, because all it means is that he goes to the governor general and says, "We can't maintain. I can't run the government." And there's the full power to the governor general to say, "Could you guys run it?" Been done on the provincial levels before. It could be done on the federal level. We have statute to allow us to do it. We just haven't done it yet in all this time, and this could occur. They could turn an agreement. We could have a mix of like liberal NDP or liberal and anybody else, more likely liberal NDP,
Well, I would like that.
to
But
run as a single party.
yeah, I just like the first vote that Polyev would have come up would be nobody would support him unless
I don't think it would topple that quickly. Depending what
yeah
it is, I don't think they topple them that quickly. Last time we had something this short was Joe Clark, and it was 6 months.
yeah
I just
yeah.
wanna let Tree Birder talk a little bit because she just came up on the panel. Hi.
Good evening, Frontline. Thank you so much. And You know, listening to you, because you remember, I think you remember the conversation joined you in talking about when we should have an election, and I was on the more leaning towards a fall because of all of the good work that's happening with Indigenous. It matters, and some of the regulations and things that are underway. And if we had 6 more months, we get closer to finalizing some of that. But listening to you and all of your discussions, you guys have really helped me change my mind on that, because I do agree with you, there's more at risk than that. But I also wanted to add to the conversation about, and I really want to thank Pumpkin Spice and TT for explaining to me and to all of us the way things are in Quebec. Because I was very triggered by the conversation. I don't know if you noticed me in the comments and stuff, but because
I
I
did.
feel
I noticed you.
because so much feels at risk. I feel like we've just been here already. Our ancestors just went through this, and I don't want to go through this again. I feel like it's still living in me in that blood memory, right? And I'm very scared, and so it's so risky. And our beautiful land, and all this beautiful water, and our forests and everything. I have to plead with you all to please be mindful about the importance now of being strategic and getting through these times. We can fight for workers' rights and Indigenous rights and all those other things once we get through this. Because if we don't get through this, those fights will never come for in our lifetime again, I don't think. It'll be the next generations that are going to have to try to fight back for it. I don't
I
want to risk that for my children or other people's grandchildren. My daughter isn't having children because of the way the challenging times are in frontline, and I've talked about this too. And we have to get through this for our next generations. So I felt
exactly.
really upset about what was being said, but now that I understand everybody's perspectives, and I can relate and get it more. But so I really appreciate the conversation, and thank you for including me.
Um,
You're so welcome. Your voice is always so important here.
I wanted to add to that. I'm a fellow First Nation. I'm Mi'kmaq from Nova Scotia. I live on a reserve, born and raised, and I was never politically active. I was never following Canadian politics ever in my life. But when I saw the danger of what's happening in the United States and the allegiances Pierre Poilievre and they were doing the exact same thing here, I knew I had to step up because I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my children and future generations. And if people think I'm crazy, the hell with it. I'd rather look crazy and do everything I can with every ounce of my body to know I'm protecting my children, you know? And that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, good job.
Treaty, I'm sorry if what I was saying was triggering you before, but like I want you to know that that not losing our sovereignty is a very important thing to me as well, and also, of course, where the individual politicians stand on. I mean, I know you said to worry about Indigenous rights after, but I mean, that is, of course, something I have my eye on about any leader that steps up as well, along with the other things, right? So, like, I just want you to know that I feel aligned. Like, maybe there's nuance that we don't all agree with about um, the minutia or where we're at, but like our goals are definitely the same. So I want you to know that that's important to me, and thanks for sharing.
And thank you. And I understand that. I heard those words from you, and I learned about, just taking the time to listen to your perspective to understand where you were coming from. So I really respect that, and I get it. If you're in a writing that it's not going to matter, then of course vote with your values in your heart. The same thing for us. We live in a straight up conservative riding. 90% of the people, I'm sure, vote for conservatives here. So our vote doesn't matter which way we go, right? So understand that, but I'm really scared, I think, sometimes, and feeling quite emotional. And, I even want to share with tonight, just an experience that my husband and I had. We ran into our neighbor at a store here. And, you all know I fight for the environment and I do a lot of work in that sector. and I'm very people know who I am, and I'm quite vocal in our area and in this province. I fight against the Alberta Energy Regulator, Alberta Environment all the time. People know me, and I've been very vocal about some of the activities around my place. And I was told tonight by a neighbor that one of our closest neighbors here says that little redskin bitch better watch out.
Yeah,
So
I
this
had
is the
some
kind of stuff
racism
we
towards
live
me
with
too
here.
today.
Yeah, so I'm feeling, I think, a little extra emotional, and I'm spending some time in the trees and stuff. But then I always have these moments of there's these trees could be gone because land's being cleared all the time, and so it's just having a hard day. So I really appreciate that you allowed me to come in though and share that with you, because I think when we all understand each other, we're gonna get through this much better.
I'm so sorry
Um,
that happened to you.
Sorry that happened.
I'm so
For the
sorry
first
that.
time in my life since I was in high school, I
Yeah.
experienced racism, and it was from a friend that I thought I was a friend. But totally understand. But don't lose hope. There's a lot of conservatives that are commenting on my educational videos that they are changing their vote because they know it's a question of whether we remain a sovereignty or not. And so all we have to do is keep up with the education and teach people about misinformation because we don't have platforms and we don't have True North and Rebel News and all them. The only thing we can do individually is exactly what we're doing here. And I commend you and everyone in here because we're doing the exact right thing. We're doing a resistance on misinformation, and that's the only thing we can snap people out of it. So yeah, there's a lot of conservatives out there that are still confused, that are still willing to listen. And that's the people that we have to educate, and that's all we can do. And
Aho,
hope for the best and pray.
aho. Hi, Calvin. Kinanas komta now. Miigwech.
I just wanted to say that earlier when I was talking about how most often it'll go block if we split the vote instead of going conservative, that doesn't mean that I was saying that our votes don't matter. They really do matter. um, I do think that it does matter what we vote, and it's just that there's less risk in Quebec depending on your writing, because there's definitely some writings that do go conservative, but there's less risk of it going conservative than it is to go in a different direction. If we were to vote, just because of the fact that the block does take up like a big amount of people. Like usually, if we split our votes, the whole of Quebec just goes blue, but not like dark blue, like light blue, like the block.
I gotcha. All right, guys. Well, this has been amazing. We've had an amazing conversation. We've been on here for 3 hours. So I am going to shut it down soon. So I wanted to just go through the panel and let everybody have kind of their last say. Don't worry about like going over time or anything like that. I'm not going to time it. Take your time, say whatever you want to say. To everybody that's listening and to everybody else on the panel. So yeah, we'll start with Joe. We'll go Joe, Treaty, TT, Cat Burrito, Panda, Johnny, Calvin, and Pumpkin Spice, and then I'll say my goodbyes and we'll end the live for tonight. But I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Like this community really has helped all of us stay sane because we know that we have each other. We know that we can talk about it. I know a lot of us that are very politically inclined don't necessarily have people in our day-to-day life that we can do this with. So it's been a pleasure always to have you guys up on the panel and to be able to have you guys are my TikTok family and I love you and it's great. You're great. I love you guys.
Love you.
We love you too.
Love you too.
All right, so Joe, I'll get you to start, and we'll just go from there.
Absolutely. Mine's it's going to be a little bit two-parted. One, obviously, the first part is exactly as I'm looking in regards to Trump and Ford, and still trying to reel back as to why Ford caved a little so quickly. Again, I understand it was a difficult thing for him to do, being a big fan of Trump of his, but I'm really curious as to what's going on there and if there's some sort of move that they're trying. And after listening to some of the people here, I'm like, I'm kind of open to the idea that he's might be trying to make some sort of move and they're going to try to get him in there. But either way, I still don't believe any of the stuff that Trump is doing is for some sort of economic goal or, the fentanyl or anything else. I think is obviously, as I think most of us do, some sort of other thing he's trying to do, and we're not going to have any knowledge of that. And second thing is, I'm wishing my friend happy birthday, who unfortunately is, as some of you know, is Dina, who is still right now over 200 days in jail. So, wishing her a happy birthday today. That's it for me.
Well, happy birthday to your friend, Joe. Um, Again, I just really appreciate this space too. I feel like we're all friends and we know each other and we've gotten through pandemics and craziness and like just I can't even keep up anymore. Sometimes I can't even remember every day what the hell's going on. Every time I look at my phone, there's a new breaking news. I'm just like, oh, what now? But anyways, and I just also really appreciate the space with all of you and a place where I can share my experiences and my knowledge and learn from all of you too. It's such a beautiful place to be. Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for co-collaborating to create this space and for it to be like, as far as TikTok goes as well, like there's a lot of very unsafe feeling spaces, and this is the opposite of that, and I really appreciate that. Even if I can be sensitive sometimes, like I recognize that we're all in this boat together and protecting one another, and we all have strong, passionate activism in our spirits that and also like just from the psychological point of view, like activism fatigue is real. And sometimes like I need to remind myself to take breaks from the doom scroll, and and take a step back and just try and check in with myself and do some yoga and stuff like that. But I just really appreciate the information sharing, and also like I do have hope because of people like you. And so that's I firmly believe that us just having conversations like these is a form of powerful activism, so much so that like those that seek to oppress things like this. So I think we need to keep it up. And I just really appreciate everybody's contributions tonight. Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thanks. Have a good night.
I'll go next. I'll echo some of the stuff that TT just said. I think, yeah, I'm pretty new to this community. I think I found out about it yesterday. I joined up one of the lives, and I met Frontline back then. But yeah, I think this is super productive. I mean, personally, I learned a lot of things I didn't know before, like smart voting, strategic voting, and then get some of the perspectives on like what's happening in other parts of the country. But I think my takeaway from all of this is that I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here when I was little, and to my memory, I have never seen or I never felt like this country being so united behind a cause ever before, right? Especially in the recent years, like everything, it feels like we're slowly devolving into American politics with all the division, all the finger pointing and stuff like that. But recently, there's been a miraculous change, of course, and I think I'm a realist. The challenges that are facing Canada right now are very significant. We have allowed our trade policy, our foreign policy, to put us in a position where the U.S. can do this to us, right? And now the challenge is, how do we turn this ship around? So that's personally why I am definitely going to cast my vote for Mark Carney, and I am going to evangelize about it to people around me, because I definitely think he's got the qualifications for the job. And what is needed in Canada right now is this shift in mindset, right? We need to insulate ourselves from what's going down south, and that includes economic policy and foreign policy. So I don't want to see like for example, like what Doug Ford keeps on touting like, oh, or maybe he's trying to cozy up with the Americans to try to gain some favors or like try to get them to concede. But it's like, oh, we should be united. U.S. and Canada, we're best friends, right? You should be pointing the blame at Mexico. You should be throwing the bucket of crap at China or something like that. That is, I think that's non-productive, and it is not going to save us, right? We need to forge new relationships. We need to basically retool our economy. And who's better to do that than, a tenured economist?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess I'll
Thanks,
throw
brother.
that out there. Yeah, I'll end it here.
Thanks, brother.
Well, I guess I'm up next. So it is a very scary time, not just to be Canadian, but also to be a Ukrainian Canadian.
Yes.
Because now I'm starting to see the discrimination that Ukrainians are starting to see. And it's honestly a very frightening time. But I am glad for this community. I'm glad for all of you. You have definitely helped, I guess, keep me calm and help me carry on. Yeah. Slava Ukraini, Slava Kennedy. Elbows up, fam.
I love it. Panda, I just added you. I'm a fellow Ukrainian Canadian. I hope you follow me back. So with last night I went on a live with a bunch of megas, and we're talking about lumber tariffs, and I hit them with facts. And what did they do in response? They sung the American anthem. There was no reasoning with them. They don't even care if you show that you're right. I don't know how to move forward with them, but yeah, same as Panda. I wanted to talk about Zelensky and Saudi Arabia, but some other time. Thank you for having me, and have a great night, everybody. Lots of love.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was turning on the mic. So yeah, good night, everybody. I'm not an expert in this field. It's just, unfortunately, I know a lot about this stuff because I am a narcissistic abuse survivor with 7 years in total of deprogramming and training. So some good game out of it. Also, my hobby is following the stock market and the global economy and all the conflicts around the world. So my uh, unnatural hobby has led me to predicting a lot of things that were happening and predicted rightfully. And because all these tactics that they're doing is not anything new. It happened in Hungary, Russia, you name it, it's happened. So all you got to do is basically follow the pattern. I'm going to continue with my disinformation campaign, trying to debunk stuff like that for people that are still on the fence of whether they're going to vote liberal or not, because this is a question of our freedom and our sovereignty for our children and future generations. And for those people that I know that are fully indoctrinated and I can't help them, I'm going to call them out and I'm going to shame them as a traitor to this country. I mean, that's the only thing I can do. And I think Mark Carney is going to do the exact same thing to PP. And I think some sane conservatives are going to distance themselves from PP. And I hope to God that's going to happen. But multa see you. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Pumpkin.
Wow, there's been so much said tonight. There's a lot going on in this world. A lot of it is very stressful. Take the time to take care of your mental health if you need to, and it's okay to take days off. I would just say to Kelvin that also sometimes it's easier if you want to appeal to their better judgment because they see themselves as good people. If you tell them that they are good people, that you respect that they're good people, and you just don't understand how they could align with the bad policies and the things that would harm people because it doesn't fit who they are as a person,
Oh,
sometimes you can get
completely
through a
agree.
little easier.
Yeah, they're I swear to God, they're decent, good people that have been infected with disinformation and narcissistic abuse cycle.
Yeah, if we attack them right away, then they're going to immediately shut down.
Hmm.
Just it's a little easier to attract flies with honey, right?
Oh, exactly, exactly. But there's some of them, like Frontline said, there's some of them you can't. There's nothing you can do with them.
Fair enough. But yeah, definitely just stay safe out there, protect your mental health. This is a long battle, and we're all witnessing it together. So we need to be able to save our strength so that we can continue fighting the good fight.
Oh, before you go, the reason why I'm calling out and shaming these people, because these people are leaders in their little groups and they're infecting others. So rather than try to disinfect those around them, I'm hitting the source instead. That's my whole logic behind it. That's the reason why I do that to them.
Awesome, guys. I want to thank you all for sharing. And, while everybody was talking there at the end, the only thing that I was thinking about is this is so nice. Like, you guys have been in conservative lives, right? And even when they're united, they're still yelling on top of each other. There's still tons of slurs and bad language and very like heated, aggressive kind of energy. And our lives tend to be, even if we do disagree sometimes, like we keep it peaceful, we let people talk. We give people hope, right? Like I see a lot in the comments that are like, seeing you guys gives me hope. And that's a beautiful part of this form of activism, that people that are on the right side of history can scroll and see that like people are still being nice to each other, because we don't see that in the world today, especially on social media. So just showing others that we can be civil and nice and respectful and have intelligent conversation, I think makes a big difference in the world. And I want to thank you all again for that. I want to thank Beaver Politics for, hosting and doing these amazing lives. We do have them every single night. Every single night, there's going to be a different live. If you guys want to see what they are and what the topics are, you can go to our profile page, and there should be some cute little videos that are pinned at the top that talk about what the different lives are. But yeah, I just want to say that I'm just super grateful for all of you guys, and I love these conversations, and I will see you again probably on Thursday night, because that's when I'm back with Miss Radical, and we're going to have Truth Through Discourse and bring up a big panel and talk about some issues again. But maybe we'll be centralized. We'll pick like 2 or 3 topics and then really focus on those. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, night.